Okay. Live now on YouTube, live on TikTok. I got the chat pulled up. Hey, how old are you? Hello? Going once, going twice? Okay. But the Dow is over 50,000. That's what we should be focusing on at all times ever. It's so crazy in hindsight watching the Pam Bondi thing, how that was fully just a performance for Trump, and that Trump is stupid enough to be like, oh, yes, perfectly done. Afternoon live. Yeah, this is new. We don't usually do afternoon lives. I figured I'll give it a shot because the thing with evening lives is it becomes middle of the night really quickly. This would usually be the time where I'm recording and scripting videos, but maybe we'll flip the order depending on how today goes. I do want to try to get some debates done. Prompts are on the screen right now, so if you do want to debate, make sure you guys are requesting to hop on, and we can discuss all three of these or just one of these. Bondi tried the Trump way of insulting opponents, and it did not work like in the 2015 primaries. The issue is that no one can play the Trump role except Trump. Like Ron DeSantis can't do it. Pam Bondi can't do it. J.D. Vance can't do it. And they try. It's not for a lack of trying. But yeah, it doesn't work when they do it because it's so try-hard. When Trump is like kind of an asshole and kind of just speaking in that very nonchalant, like I'm not thinking about what I'm saying way, it's somewhat authentic. When Bondi does it, she's a binder full of insults. If it doesn't throw a red flag that Trump was 54 getting with a 26-year-old, something's wrong. And here's the thing about all the Epstein stuff. No one should be surprised. We can be like, oh, wow, this is a lot of new evidence I didn't know about. But before a single Epstein file was released, we had an interview from Trump saying Jeffrey loves beautiful women just as much as I do. Some are on the younger side. If someone knew Epstein in the late 90s and said he likes young girls, what the fuck would that possibly mean? What the fuck else would that possibly mean? So the best case scenario for Trump is that he knew the whole time and didn't say anything, which if you think that's a W, first of all, I'm not even convinced that that's the case, but let's just say, being as charitable as possible, that is the case. Why would you praise him for hiding that? That's not even Epstein. It's him getting with Melanie. I think you mean Melania. What is up with the Skippy video? I don't know what that is. And if we don't get any requests for debates, we can switch on over to covering some of the news I wanted to go over. First of all, this clip of Kristi Noem, which in my opinion, and maybe people will take issue with this, the biggest story in the country right now politically should be the fact that these people are saying they want to, I want to get my live flagged, they want to RIG the election. They want to STEAL the election. They're saying it so blatantly. And I guess if we're not getting any debate requests, we can switch on over to covering that real quick. There's that. And okay. This is insane to me, the way she words this. I don't know if anyone else has seen this clip.
And elections is another one of those critical infrastructure responsibilities that I have as well. And I would say that many people believe that it may be one of the most important things that we need.
How come you removed Trump's bad for the economy? I removed all of them. I changed up the prompts just because it was getting boring doing the same ones. I'll still debate economic stuff with anyone.
Elections is another one of those critical infrastructure responsibilities that I have as well. And I would say that many people believe that it may be one of the most important things that we need to make sure we trust is reliable, and that when it gets to election day that we've been proactive to make sure that we have the right.
American Advocate, if you want to keep trolling, you should use a different username that I can't recognize. I know you're not like a real, I don't know what you are, but you're not a serious debate person on this live.
People voting, electing the right leaders to lead this country through the days that we have the right people votable, and that when it gets to election day that we've been proactive to make sure that we have the right people voting, electing the right leaders to lead this country.
She didn't even say we need election integrity. She said my role at the DHS is to make sure the right people are voting and electing the right leaders. I don't know how much more blatant you could get. And the fact that they say this openly is scary. This is something you'd think that if they were smart, they'd keep it secret. They'd give some sort of public-facing excuse that is at least nominally acceptable. And we want to make sure the elections are secure. Whoever wins, wins. We just want fair and free elections. Instead, she says, we want to make sure the right people are winning elections. I don't know how that isn't the biggest story in modern American history. Because anything we can complain about, rightfully so, whether it's the Epstein files handling or ICE violating constitutional rights or billions of dollars of corruption or a whole host of other things, the only way that we really have to address that, barring a complete collapse of society, is the voting booth. And if these people are saying, we want to make sure the right people are voting and the right leaders are getting elected, that should be paramount above everything else, because we can't address these other issues of economic inequality and authoritarianism if we can't elect a new leader after this. How can they go about doing what? Someone asked on YouTube chat, are you friends with any Republicans? No, I'm not. Most of my friends are apolitical. They're pretty apolitical. I mean, I think I'm kind of their main source of politics and stuff, so maybe I'm brainwashing them a little bit. Have you kept up with the Olympics? No, I have not. Where is she at? I'm about to fly to NYC. I hope she's not there. Well, even does anyone remember during the government shutdown, there were certain airports that were playing this video of Kristi Noem, like right by the TSA checkpoints, that were like, the radical left Democrats aren't paying our TSA agents. That was dystopian as fuck. That was so crazy that there were airports playing that shit. Chuck and Dems need to quit caving. Chuck and Jeffries, I think Jeffries is better than Schumer, marginally. But yeah, Chuck Schumer needs to go. Hakeem Jeffries needs to go. I think everyone in the Democratic base right now agrees on abolishing ICE. It is only the leadership that's like, oh, that's too far. Dude, if you want to do immigration enforcement, can't we just do what we did before, like 2003 or 2004, whatever the year was? Like, we're not saying abolish DHS, abolish ICE, and then either create a new agency for immigration enforcement only against criminals and recent entries, or just devolve it back. The same people who are like, the government is so redundant, we have so much bureaucratic waste. True, let's abolish ICE, and then DHS can just take care of election stuff or of immigration stuff instead of having a separate agency for this. Kind of redundant, no? I'm disappointed the Ukrainian athlete didn't get to wear their memorial helmet. I didn't know that was happening. But this to me should be the biggest story in the country. And this was 2 days ago. Can I get a show of hands? Or I'm going to run a quick poll. I want to do a quick poll. Smiley face means you have seen this video before of Kristi Noem saying we have to get the right people voting, electing the right leaders to lead this country, okay? Smiley face, how do I launch this poll? Smiley face is yes, I've seen this clip. And crying face is this is the first time seeing it. The fact that this happened 2 days ago and it's not the biggest story in the country is, yeah, we're cooked. We're cooked. We're cooked. The fact that it's even this close is insane. I keep saying it is not maliciousness that will destroy this country. It is ignorance. It is people who are otherwise well-intentioned, who are just going about their life. And they may even think, hey, I don't really like Trump. He's like really mean and like we should be nice to immigrants and stuff. But they don't understand the depths of the depravity in the White House right now. They don't understand the stakes at play here. Yeah, 9-19. And again, this is a biased sample of left-leaning people probably by and large. This is people who are, broadly speaking, on my side. There's a couple of stragglers in there who are like probably pro-Trump. But broadly speaking, the fact that people on my own side who are not just on my side, but more politically engaged in that they're watching a political live stream on a Monday afternoon, if they don't know, how is the American public going to react when they wake up the day after Election Day and you see a news headline like DNI says evidence of foreign interference with voting machines, National Guard and DHS agents deployed to seize voting machines for, DNI or CIA to analyze the results? how many tens of millions of people will wake up that day in November and say, wait, what the fuck? I didn't know it was that bad. I didn't know it was that crazy. That's the thing that bothers me when we talk about this idea of Trump derangement syndrome. Dude, even the most anti-Trump people who are like normie anti-Trump people who aren't obsessed with politics, they don't understand the stakes right now. I don't think they understand how insane this is. The first time I told my friends that there might not be elections in 2028, the look on their face told me everything I need to know, because these are people who do not like Trump, who voted against Trump, but they're also not like every single day reading every single political story. And they're like, wait, I knew it was bad, but like, what do you mean no more elections? That's next level. That's not just like the government's doing all this bad stuff. It's we no longer have the mechanism there to stop them or replace them. Yeah. So I will keep saying this. I think right now, especially on the left, there's this predominant idea that like the reason America is decaying and fucking being set ablaze is because we have all these malicious people in the country. The truth is, we have a lot of ignorant people in this country. And not even like bad intention ignorant. They just don't think to check super deeply. They're busy with work and friends and whatever else it may be. And they're going to learn all this stuff the hard way. You saw this with Andrew Schulz after Alex Preddy was gunned down in the streets like a stray dog. And he goes on this podcast, and credit to him for flipping, but he goes, I did not know this was possible in America. I thought our constitutional checks would hold. Bro, the Constitution is a piece of paper. If the people in power refuse to oblige the Constitution no longer exists for all intents and purposes. The piece of paper is not self-enforcing. And a lot of people think like, okay, there are guardrails there. I hate Trump, but like there are guardrails there. We can just vote him out in the midterms. We can just vote him out in 2028. And my issue is the far right people, they've been planning. Say what you will about Project 2025. It's a long ass fucking document. It's extremely detailed. This is who you appoint to these agencies. These are the EOs you sign. This is legislation you push. They are planning over a 5 or 10 year time horizon on how do we, as right-wingers, entrench our power in the federal government. Meanwhile, the left doesn't even fully understand what they're opposing right now, let alone having an affirmative vision for what comes after. So it's bad enough that a lot of the American left, and maybe like center left, the moderates, the normies, who are not super obsessed with politics, the full extent of their engagement right now is like, man, this Trump guy is really bad. We got to vote him out. That's it. They don't fully understand what we're up against, let alone saying, okay, what do we do after we get Trump out of office? What is the actual plan? How do we entrench power? If these people want to entrench power by capturing the regulatory state, by capturing the administrative state, by trying to capture the military, by capturing our courts and our Congress, by expanding the power of the executive branch such that the other two branches don't really exist in the same way anymore, we're dealing with people who are not just malicious, but they weaponize ignorance. How many of the 77 million people who voted for Trump are like legitimately like, yeah, man, I hate democracy. I hate checks and balances. I love January 6th. I'd say probably more than half of them are not like that. They're just like, hey, man, like, I don't really know politics stuff. Like, prices were high, and like, I don't like Kamala's laugh, and Trump was kind of funny. He did that goofy dance. That's who voted for him, by and large. Those people are going to be in for a rude awakening come election day. Yeah, 20 million on the low end. And this is important because it impacts your strategy. If you're under the impression that we are fighting maliciousness right now, you're not going to come with the right tool set to address it. What we are fighting right now, by and large, is ignorance, and then a little tumor of maliciousness that is taking advantage of that ignorance. MAGA engages in fast food politics very well. They have their little cute talking points that are super, super simple and super easy to distribute and super easy to understand. And then someone comes on the left like, here's my 50-point plan of all the tax credits we will change. That's not going to work, bro. And it's also that's not the real thing to be focusing on right now. As someone who thinks that economic policy, are you in the requests? Hop on live later to discuss. Yes, DA. Absolutely. Yeah, we're cooked. Moral of the story, it's bad. And man, the discourse recently the Gavin Newsom, JD Vance discourse. I'm not going to get into it too much over here. I posted a video about it. The types of people who are like really excited for some kind of violent revolution, I am very scared of what happens in a violent revolution. What happens to like all the children and like disabled people and all the poor people? I don't know what people think a revolution would look like, and maybe some people have a different definition of it, which fair enough. But if these people successfully steal elections, at that point I would say, okay, the United States government has lost all legitimacy. The 1% legitimacy they have right now, because sometimes the courts do their job and sometimes the Congress kind of does its job. Once elections are gone, once the main roadblock or corrective mechanism to remove these people is gone, elections are paramount right now. Once elections are gone, then I will be in the boat of like, okay, yeah, the US government is no longer legitimate. There needs to be something new here. But it's a very scary position to be in, because at that point we're saying, okay, if we're working in GTA, obviously not in real life, if we're working in GTA outside the confines of norms and law completely, and everyone has a different plan of what comes next, what comes after the revolution, we're cooked, because the right wing is so in lockstep. They have detailed ass plans, bro. Project 2025 is so fucking detailed and so thorough, and it plans like, okay, if they do this, we're going to do this, and we're going to establish our power this way. It's fucking smart. If I was a Republican, I'd be like, wow, this is awesome. This is, all we have to do is implement this and we're good to go. Meanwhile, the left can't even agree on fucking anything. So if they steal the elections, and if we get to a point where it's like, okay, we have to establish some kind of new federal government. This is, once elections are gone, we're in a very different world. At that point, I'm like, we are cooked, because where is the leadership? Where is the coordination to ensure that we're moving in some kind of coherent way, and it isn't everyone moving in 10 different directions at once? And it feels like watching a car crash happening in slow motion, where it's like, I think everyone here knows what's coming, and we're screaming at the top of our lungs, and it's like, okay, I guess we just have to wait for November for the thing to happen that we all know is going to happen, and we can keep trying to say, hey guys, this is really bad. And if you truly believe the sky is falling, why are you still here? Because when we have a crisis of ignorance, the best tool for that is education and invigoration. Make people care and then teach them what's happening. If you don't have a populace that knows what's going on and cares about what's going on, then we are in the worst possible position when this comes to pass. If at least people have an inkling of what's happening, I'd rather be in that position than to just carry on and delude ourselves for the next few months. And it's what it felt like in the lead up to the 2024 election, is telling everyone, hey man, I know you want like low taxes and stuff. This guy's an actual fucking authoritarian who will like try to throw his opponents in jail. Trump derangement syndrome. Bro, if you go back to my old videos from before the election where I'm talking about, here's what he's going to do to fire executive branch agency workers. Here's the people he's going to put into power. He's going to defy the courts. He's going to defy the Congress. He's going to do all this stuff. Everyone told me you have Trump derangement syndrome. He's never going to do that. And now what? These people have Trump derangement syndrome, Trump devotion syndrome, is that they live in some weird mental paradigm where Trump could never cross a red line. The red line moves 2 steps forward every time Trump takes one. It is physically impossible for Trump to cross a red line. And yeah, we knew he did it after the 2020 election. Oh man, you want to see some fucking rage bait? I had this queued up to go. Ben Shapiro did an interview on The New Yorker. I am working right now on a video just absolutely ripping into Ben Shapiro, because to me, he is one of the scummiest people in American politics. He's a fucking rat. I don't want to get my TikTok flagged. I just strongly dislike. I hate him. I really do. I don't hate many people. I hate Ben Shapiro because he is someone who fully knows what's happening. This man went to fucking Harvard Law School. When he sees them defying courts, when he sees them defying Article 1 and 3, he knows what the fuck that is. And the most he can muster is like, I guess that's not optimal. I guess I wouldn't have done it that way. Yeah, that's not great. That's the most he can fucking muster. Live restricted for some audiences. Your live contains themes that some may find uncomfortable and has been restricted. Harassment and bullying. Okay, guys. Well, we'll continue on, and if it gets bad, we'll restart, I guess. I don't know if it's a temporary restriction or if it's just permanent for the rest of the live.
So you got out of UCLA, went to Harvard Law School, you were a lawyer for a little while at least, and then you entered the world of what we would call conservative media. And you were at Breitbart, which was like the publication of the MAGA movement, I think it's fair to say.
Should I just restart? Is this one of those like 10-minute bans, or am I just like, there's now a ceiling on the live for the rest of it? Restart. Okay. 3 strikes you out. Okay. Listen. Stand back and stand by. Thank you for the pinch face, Jeanette. And everyone else who sent gifts, Millie. Stand back and stand by. Seriously. Oh, the nice thing is we're still live on YouTube. YouTube guys, you don't have to experience the intermission we're dealing with right now. Let's go. I don't even know if anyone's watching on YouTube, though. Peacefully and patriotically, everyone who's hopping on, make sure you guys are double tapping the screen. We need more people to be liking the live. YouTube is better. True. I agree. No shutdowns or restarts or flags on YouTube. Can bully Shapiro as much as we want, which we're not going to do here, guys. We're going to be super polite for the TikTok moderators. Like the live or else you won't have a country anymore. Yes, you have to like hell. Like hell or you're not going to have a country anymore. Everyone. I see someone named, what is their name? Vinko in the requests. Vinko, let me know in the chat if you wanted to debate one of my debate prompts or if you have some other intentions, because we are kind of focused on this video right now, but double tap, guys. Make sure you're double tapping the entire live, okay? If you want me to go live more often, just morals, I guess. Bro, if I have someone on this live again who's like, premise 1, premise 2, this is my axiom. I do not want to have a philosophy debate. I'm sorry. If that's what you mean by that, I'm sorry. I'm not interested.
With Steve Bannon and all kinds of people. You look back on your Breitbart days, this is before that you started the Daily Wire.
And pragmatic pedant. Trump's not corrupt. Oh boy. Okay, we are switching over to debates. Hello? Trump's not corrupt. What the?
Politically, he's not corrupt.
What do you mean?
Like I was trying to tell you in the chat, morally, I don't want to talk morals. I want to talk politically, he is not corrupt.
No, but like when someone is using the office of the presidency to enrich themselves, that's corruption, right?
Name one time he has done that.
The World Liberty financial deal between G42 and Binance.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one.
It was a $2 billion deal done between the UAE and Binance using Trump's stablecoin, which was a brand new stablecoin that no one had been using.
Yeah, I'm retarded, bro.
Okay. I guess I won that debate. As I was saying, Ben Shapiro YouTube video coming soon, ripping into him peacefully and patriotically, not in a bullying way. And Jacob, I see you in the guest request. We're not talking to friendlies right now. You're free to hop on towards the end of the live when I usually do that, but we're either taking debates or we're reacting to the Shapiro thing. Hold on.
What do you think was positive about it, and what do you look back on with some regret in terms of the leaders of that?
So, I had worked at Talk Radio Network, which
the Clinton. I want to be clear. about the Epstein files, if the Clintons are in there, if the Obama, I don't care if it's Democrat or Republican, if someone shows indication of engaging in criminality in the files, investigate them. Is this some kind of shocking statement here? I'm actually not a partisan hack like all the MAGA people. How do you get on Jubilee? Just go apply on their casting website. Are you on YouTube? Yes. And to everyone watching on TikTok, I strongly prefer you watch on YouTube. The layout is better. The quality is better. Everything on YouTube side is better. So the link is in my bio. At the very least, just subscribe on YouTube. Okay, subscribe on YouTube at the very least. Join the Discord. And then ideally watch on YouTube as well. If you don't want to watch on YouTube and you're going to watch on TikTok, make sure you are double tapping the screen consistently, constantly, peacefully and patriotically. Fight like hell.
The syndicator for Michael Savage and Laura.
I do not care about his backstory.
Obviously, the leadership structure changed pretty dramatically. Steve Bannon, who'd been kind of hanging around on the fringes of Breitbart Universe. There have been wonderful
But how did you assess what Steve...
Conservative talking points. I mean, it was certainly a mainstream conservative web Trump in the 2015-2016 election cycle. I was much more supportive of Ted Cruz in the primaries, and then in the general election.
Someone says first, are you Jew? And then says Hassan is greater than George Washington. Okay.
Election, I actually didn't vote in 2016 because I was unhappy with both candidates. Obviously, post that, I think President Trump did many things that as a conservative I like. He is a certainly non-ideological figure, which is why so many people try to sort of claim things. Right? Trump is not a supporter of President Trump's website at that time. I think by the time we hit 2015, 2016, things...
I need everyone to just lock in for some of the greatest rage bait you will ever see. And everyone should be subscribed on YouTube, because when I tell you this video I'm making about Ben Shapiro is going to be the equivalent of like Meet the Grams. Like I am fucking scripting this shit. I'm planning this shit. I have so many receipts. I've just never been this motivated to take someone down peacefully and patriotically with my words and my rhetoric.
It started to evolve a fair bit, especially because of the rise of President Trump. I was not a supporter of President Trump in the 2015-2016 election cycle. I was much more supportive of Ted Cruz in the primaries, and then in the general election, I actually didn't vote in 2016 because I was unhappy with both candidates. Obviously, post that, I think President Trump did many things that as a conservative I like. He is a certainly non-ideological figure, which is why so many people try to sort of claim that MAGA is part of their...
This is why I strongly dislike him peacefully and patriotically with love to the TikTok auto moderators. I love everyone, okay? This is why I really don't like him. He knew full well everything wrong with Trump in 2016. He went on conservative shows to debate other conservative commentators on why Trump is corrupt, why he's dangerous, why he should never be anywhere near power. Consistently. He's in the Marco Rubio camp. He's in the Lindsey Graham camp. A lot of these conservatives in the 2016 primary, before Trump became this force you have to pledge loyalty to, they were very clear-eyed. Threat to democracy, corrupt, unintelligent, incompetent. They knew all of it. They were shouting from the rooftops this stuff. And now, when someone makes those exact same arguments that people like Ben used to make, Trump derangement syndrome, silly liberal. That's why I don't like him. If he supported Trump from day one, I'd still dislike him, but I'd be like, okay, this guy's been on the fucking crazy train since day one. But no, he saw the crazy train. He's like, wow, that's a crazy train. And then he still fucking bought a ticket to board.
Movement. You have Reagan conservatives who will say that MAGA is a Reagan conservatism. You'll have national populists who say that it's a national populist. Trump is none of those things, right? Trump is Trump, and he has instincts.
Which means what to you, Ben? Trump means what?
His instincts are sort of naturally those of a, I'd say, 1975 conservative, and that means that he likes a strong America.
A 1975 conservative. Am I crazy, or is that the... No, it's Ford. When was Nixon? Yeah, the only 1970s conservative I see commonality between Trump with is Richard Nixon. And then Trump fucking took it to the next level with his corruption. And Nixon at least created the Environmental Protection Agency. At least Nixon, if you dig long enough, you can find some silver lining somewhere. I don't know what the silver lining is with Trump.
Did was because in 2016, he organized a protest against what he thought
Wait, this is the wrong video. This is something we'll watch after.
On the world stage, but tempered by a sort of hard-nosed realism about non-interventionism. I think that when it comes to domestic policy, he has sort of a...
Guys, don't you love Trump's non-interventionism, where he like deposes the leader of Venezuela and bombs Iran and creates some weird post-genocide peace council or whatever in Gaza? What a non-interventionist he is.
Weird mix of not liking the government to be involved in everything, but also wanting to use the government in ways that I don't particularly approve. He seems to be more about, what is the solution at hand?
Notice how Ben Shapiro's characterization of someone who misappropriates congressional funds to privately buy stake in a company behind closed doors using CHIPS Act funds, who defies courts, the most Shapiro can muster is, he does happen to do certain things I don't like. Is this how he talks about Democrats?
Approve. He seems to be more about, what is the solution at hand? Will I try it? And then if it doesn't work, then he pulls out of it. So people have termed that taco, right? Trump always chickens out. I don't think that's right. I think that President Trump is a person who is willing to try different things and then will shift on a dime.
Do you think he's honest?
Those things are working.
Do you think Trump is honest? There was an article
in
in the Wall Street.
Yes, in some ways, no.
There was an article in the Wall Street Journal just a couple of days ago describing the fishy investments from Abu Dhabi into the Trump family.
Yeah,
our reporter, David Kirkpatrick, who's extremely conservative in his calculations about how he's assessing this, has said that the Trump family has enriched itself to the tune of $4 billion since taking office again in 2024. Does this concern you at all?
Of course. I mean, I've been calling this out, I think, before pretty much anybody else. I mean, early on in the Trump administration, when World Liberty Financial was pretty clearly making a fair bit of money over in the Middle East, I raised red flags on my show consistently about how I thought this was wrong. If the name were Biden and instead of Trump, people would be screaming bloody murder.
As would you. As would you, Ben. You can't try to differentiate yourself.
And how this was not beneficial to President Trump's agenda either. So
Trump engages in a multi-billion-dollar corruption scheme. This is not particularly beneficial for his agenda. I guess you're criticizing it in a way, but what the fuck is this mealy-mouthed bullshit? Say it with your chest. Say it the way you would say it if a Democrat did it. Shapiro thinks he's like, I'm above the fray. I call him out sometimes. The extent of his call out is like, I don't like this. Anyways, moving on.
Sure. That
well, not
the same guy who wrote a book called The Criminal Case Against Barack Obama, this is going to be in my video. By the way, Ben Shapiro wrote an entire book about how Barack Obama can be charged with RICO charges because he used executive power in a way that Ben doesn't like. Fast forward like a decade or two, the Supreme Court says the president has absolute criminal immunity. And Shapiro says, yes, I agree. Didn't you write a whole fucking book about how the executive branch, if they overuse their power, engages in criminality, but now you support this? Okay.
Beneficial to his agenda or corrupt?
I mean, both, obviously. I mean, I do think that if you are taking, what I perceive to be digital assets that are not particularly worthwhile, and then you have people who are politically interested.
Doc says you aren't on half Benz's level. True, I'm on at least double his level. You're right. I debated him, and just watch the debate. He changed his position 5 times because he was cooked.
Investing massive amounts of money into those things, that is not a good thing.
You voted for him the second time?
I voted for him.
Okay, and it seems like Doc never watched the debate. Just as a quick reminder of my debate with Ben Shapiro, I opened the debate by saying, hey man, I'm worried that Trump could defy courts. And Ben says, no. Democrats are more likely to defy courts. Fast forward to the end of the debate, and Ben is saying, listen, man, defying courts isn't so bad. Wait, what? You were just saying that defying courts is bad, but Democrats are the ones who do it. And now, 7 minutes later, you're defending court defiance because I proved to you that Trump is the one doing it to a much greater extent. Interesting how that works. It's almost like your premise is that you love Trump, not that you love the Constitution. Ben Shapiro has sold out the United States Constitution and everything he learned in law school for lower taxes and pro-Israel foreign policy. Wow. What a hero.
And then I campaigned for him in 2024.
Why?
Because it was now a binary choice between Trump and Kamala Harris. And I
said all of this to his face twice. I've debated him twice. These comebacks would work against 99% of other people who hate Ben Shapiro. As someone who's debated him twice and destroyed him twice, this is the last place you can use these comebacks. Please come up with something better.
A lot of what he did during his first administration, I felt the guardrails would largely hold, which I believe they have with regard to President Trump. I know many on the left believe they've not. But what I would
believe
say
the
is
guardrails have held this time?
Yes. I'm hard pressed.
Help me on that, Ben.
Not the smirk. He's like, you think the guardrails of American democracy have held in Trump's second term? I love how he gives him a little smirk.
You believe the guardrails have held this time?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
hard pressed.
Help me on that, Ben.
Sure.
Because I don't see it even remotely the case. So let me hear your point of view on that.
The Trump administration has not bucked the judiciary to the tune of simply saying that if an appellate...
So that's a fucking lie? That's a lie? Complete fucking lie. Now, President Trump has not bucked the judiciary. As of November 2025, 26 cases of non-compliance with courts, over 60 cases of lying to courts, and 68 cases of arbitrary and capricious arguments in courts. As of November 2025, it's been months. President Trump has not bucked the judiciary? Okay, bro.
Court or the Supreme Court rules in a particular way, they will just go ahead and do whatever it is that they want to do. The president does cite legal authority for the things that he is doing.
And then when the courts say you don't have that legal authority, he says, I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to take it up through the fucking shadow docket and get a stay on this temporary injunction so I can keep doing it until you rule against me in the end.
You're confident that the Justice Department will pursue corruption charges against the Trump family because it's independent?
I'm confident that the president will likely pardon himself and his children in the same way that Joe Biden did on his way out.
Joe Biden.
But you're laughing, but that's radically corrupt, is it not?
Again, I think that it was radically corrupt when the DOJ did not pursue, with alacrity, a lot of the issues surrounding the Biden family too. I think one of the things.
Alacrity, because they did pursue Hunter Biden, brisk and cheerful, ready. Okay, so Ben Shapiro is angry that when the DOJ went after Hunter Biden, they weren't cheerful enough about going after Hunter Biden. Bro, and listen, anyone who watches me knows I do not like Joe. I've been criticizing Biden since 2023 and getting shit from my own audience. Why are you criticizing Biden? So no one can say I'm like a pro-Biden chill. Joe Biden's Department of Justice, number one, slow-rolled the investigation into Donald Trump. Attorney General Merrick Garland paused the investigations into Donald Trump during the 2022 midterms because he didn't want it to be politicized, even though Donald Trump was not on the ballot in 2022. So already, Biden's DOJ went easy on Trump. Secondly, Biden's DOJ appointed special counsel Robert Hur, who is a Republican, who interviewed Biden and released a report, the Hur report, which damaged very significantly Joe Biden's reputation and re-election chances. And also, the DOJ, Joe Biden's DOJ, brought charges against Hunter Biden. Can anyone even imagine? No amount of psychedelic drugs could make you imagine that Donald Trump's DOJ would appoint a special counsel to look into Donald Trump, that Donald Trump's DOJ would indict Hunter or Eric, or sorry, not Hunter, Don Jr. or Eric or Kushner or Ivanka. Impossible they would do that. That Donald Trump's DOJ would pause an investigation into one of his political opponents for fairness' sake. If they were being fair, they wouldn't have indicted them in the first place. This is so insane. This is so insane. The false equivalency is unreal, and Shapiro knows better. That's why he said they didn't pursue with alacrity. He has to put on a qualifier because he knows Biden's DOJ did pursue Biden's son, and they did pursue even Biden to some extent. Would Pam Bondi ever? It's so crazy. Pam Bondi just did a fucking glaze fest in the Congress. How dare you say this about Donald Trump? How dare you, good sir? He is the best. Okay, Merrick Garland investigated Joe Biden. These are not the same DOJs at all. At all.
Pursue, with alacrity, a lot of the issues surrounding the Biden family too. I think one of the things, So the answer is yes, and it applies to all parties. What I hear from the left,
Guys, leave Doc alone. He's a keyboard warrior. He's not going to request. Let him have his fun in the comments.
Constant drumbeat of accusation about President Trump, to which I acquiesce in part, but I find them utterly unconcerned with the same sorts of issues arising on their side of the aisle.
Because the same sorts of issues do not exist on our side of the aisle. When the Supreme Court stopped Biden from forgiving student loans, he obeyed the court decision despite disagreeing with it. When the DOJ indicted Hunter, Biden didn't shut down the investigation. The fact that Biden had to pardon Hunter in the first place should prove that he wasn't running the DOJ, because if he was running the DOJ, why not just have them drop the case? Why not just fire Merrick Garland, like replace him with a loyalist, or just appoint a loyalist? Why not? The false equivalency is crazy.
They see President Trump as the person who's constantly violating the standard, the person who's constantly setting the new standard.
Absolutely. Garland is why we currently have a fascist POTUS. Yes. Yes. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I will never get over this. Because listen, MAGA is going to call the Biden DOJ, they're doing lawfare, they're weaponizing, no matter what. So Garland's logic in 2022, this is so insane to me, is, guys, if we're still investigating Trump during the 2022 midterms, I fear that this could politicize the investigation. I don't want any association between DOJ investigations and partisan elections. So let's just pause the investigation. Mr. Garland, did you pausing the investigation in 2022 cause MAGA to not accuse you of lawfare? There are people in MAGA who want to HANG Merrick Garland and like Anthony Fauci. All these people, the institutionalists on the center left or the center, who bit their tongue or slow-rolled investigations as if that would make MAGA take them more seriously. What the fuck do you think we're dealing with here? Newsflash. Trump will call every investigation into him a partisan witch hunt, no matter what the substance is. Everyone in MAGA will tell you that if Trump is indicted, regardless of why he's indicted, just the mere fact that he was indicted is in and of itself proof of lawfare or weaponization of justice. So I don't know what you think you're accomplishing by trying to be like super fair and impartial. So yes, I blame Merrick Garland.
I've said publicly before, I think President Trump stumbled on the prone body of American politics and said, this is a dead body. I see him much more as the coroner than as the murderer. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not some of both, meaning I think things can get worse under President Trump than they were heretofore. And I'm not going to deny that he's done things that I think are bad and wrong.
Bad and wrong. Bad and wrong. Remember, this is the same guy who called Joe Biden satanic and demonic and dictatorial. Why? Because Biden gave a speech with some red lights behind him. I am not joking. Ben Shapiro did a whole episode of his show about the speech that Joe Biden gave with red lights behind him, and like there was like 2 troops standing behind him. And he said, wow, this imagery is demonic. It's dictatorial. Over a fucking light setup, over a lighting rig. That's demonic and dictatorial, but Trump engaging in multi-billion-dollar corruption schemes, Trump indicting his political opponents, Trump defying Article 1 and Article 3 of the Constitution, defying the First Amendment, the 10th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, all of that, the most he can muster. I guess this is bad and wrong. Anyways, moving on.
I was very critical of his
what a joke.
Rhetoric, for example, between the election of 2020 and January 6th. And I'm not going to deny that he's done things that I think are bad and wrong. I was very critical of his rhetoric, for example, between the election of 2020 and January 6th. But I do think that to ignore the fact that
were any of these things disqualifying in a moral political sense, like January 6th, for example?
Right. So I don't know what disqualifying means in the sense that I did not support him in the primaries.
That he would lose your faith and vote and support.
Like he did in 2016 when there was not much of a political price for you to pay for sticking to your values. All Shapiro has showed us is that pro-Israel foreign policy and tax cuts for the wealthy are more important to him than the existence of the United States of America. of the constitutional order, of checks and balances, of stopping authoritarianism. Shapiro cares more about kissing up to Netanyahu and cutting taxes for the wealthy than all of those conservative values. Small, limited government.
Forever.
Well, I mean, the only way to lose my faith and support and vote forever would be for there to be an alternative that I find superior to him. This is the problem. When you're making voting decisions, would I want Donald Trump marrying into my family? Probably not. When it comes to my politicians, the problem is that once
and by the way, if you're MAGA, you should also hate him, because he deep down, Shapiro knows Trump, I'll say thinks if I'm talking to MAGA, deep down, Ben Shapiro believes that Trump is an authoritarian, that he's extremely stupid, that he's an extremist, and that all his supporters are low-key stupid. Ben Shapiro believes this. But he caters to you guys because you butter his bread. You give him views, you give him money, you show up to his speeches. So even if you're in MAGA, you should not like Ben Shapiro, because he's not actually a true believer like you guys are. He just is opportunistic. He walks amongst you to be part of the pack, to be part of the group. He doesn't want to be left out on the side. And they know this. If you ever watch a Ben Shapiro video where he says something rare and correct, where he's like, you know what, 2020 election wasn't stolen. All the comments are like, hey man, I really love Shapiro, but he really fell for that liberal propaganda on the election. I really love Shapiro, but he really fell for that MSM, lamestream, mainstream propaganda on Trump being corrupt. So whenever Shapiro's true beliefs slip out here and there, MAGA's like, hey man, cut the shit, cut it out, stop.
That the candidate is quote unquote disqualified, then you either have to sit out the election, which I did in 2016, right? I found both candidates to be insufficient. And then whatever damage President Trump.
How did he sit out in 2016 and then not in 2020 and not in 2024? At least in 2016, we didn't have an example of how does Trump behave as president of the United States. There, he sat out. Once he saw it in action, he was like, okay, buddy, time to vote. Time to vote for this guy.
I thought had done by being elected in 2016. I thought that he did a bunch of things I liked between 2016 and 2020. And then I did not like what he did with regard to the election of 2020 and what I think are falsehoods that he told about winning that election and the idea that he was the actual victor and all that. And I didn't like what he said leading up to January 6th. Again, I'm very, very critical of that. And then I didn't support him in the primaries, and then he ended up winning the nomination. He was running against
I have to play it again. Holy shit. Thank you for the Galaxy sci-fi modeler. Thank you. Thank you for the Galaxy. I need to find this shit, bro. Yes. Alone. Joe Biden gives the most dangerous presidential speech in modern history. And remember, the most he can muster for Donald Trump's corruption and authoritarianism is, this is indeed bad and wrong. This is bad and wrong, guys. Listen, I'll call him out. It's bad. It's not great. Meanwhile, the most dangerous speech in modern history.
Joe Biden delivers the most divisive, demagogic speech in modern American history, demonizing half the country as opposed to democracy, liberty, and decency, while insisting...
Oh, no, he demonized half the country. Imagine if he tweeted an AI video of him dropping poop onto half of the country that he doesn't like. Imagine if he actually indicted political opponents from the other half of the country. But a speech. Oh, no, not the speech.
Fascist color pattern.
Oh, my God.
Democracy and legality.
I forgot. He called him a fascist, too. Guys, remember, guys, if you call someone a fascist, you're basically calling for their death, right? This is what MAGA has told us, that merely calling someone a fascist means you're calling for their death. Well, by that logic, Ben Shapiro, based on a speech with some red lights, called for the death of Biden. By that logic.
Like, what can we do to make the president really look cool? Well, what if we take a historic American site, the site that really is known for liberty and for democracy and legality, and what if we light it blood red, and we put the president in front of the blood red site, so it'll be red and black, like the fascist color pattern. Let's do that. And then, what if we actually front light him so he looks angry and demonic against that backdrop?
Demonic.
And then, what if we put
So far, here's what we've gotten. Joe Biden is a demonic fascist because there are red and black colors around him. And what does he say after Trump says... What does he say after Trump says, after Trump's an authoritarian? Let's just compare. Okay, so on the one hand, black and red lights, demonic fascist dictator. Okay, what about multi-billion-dollar corruption schemes and like authoritarianism and like indicting political opponents?
And I'm not going to deny that he's done things that I think are bad and wrong. I was very
bad and wrong. What happened to fascistic and demonic and that's weird. So does Ben Shapiro think that a red and black color scheme is worse than actual fascistic governance? Huh.
A couple of Marines behind him to look like military force is what is backing him.
Oh my God. Isn't it so authoritarian when you make shows of force with the military to try to scare people and say, hey guys, you mess with me, the troops are coming. How disgusting. Anyways, back to sending National Guard to blue cities and states and giving speeches to our top generals, calling the other half of the country vermin and saying we have to take care of them and that we have to use blue cities as training grounds and calling our political opponents the enemy from within to the military generals.
This is a taxpayer-sponsored event, by the way.
Oh.
You paid for this.
Oh.
So Joe Biden gave a speech, and the speech was designed to attack all of his political opponents and treat them as enemies of the state.
No! Enemies of the state! But if the president and his administration calls people on the left domestic terrorists and they indict political opponents on fake charges, that's bad and wrong? That's just bad and wrong? Okay. I just wanted to make sure what the standard is that we're using here.
What are they doing?
Oh my God, bro. This is an iconic scene.
The image that you're seeing right now of Joe Biden, this is the single worst piece of presidential image making I have ever seen in my entire life.
No.
It is not close. This is an astonishingly bad image for the president of the United States, especially when he's declaring...
Trigger warning, guys. I'm sorry to put up such fascism on the screen right now. Please, hold on to your seats. This is going to get scary and spooky. It's not going to be bad and wrong, at least. Everyone can take a sigh of relief. It's not going to be bad and wrong. It's going to be demonic, satanic, dictatorial, whatever the fuck.
I'm here in defense of democracy, and now I'm going to yell at you about how everyone who opposes me is an enemy of democracy.
Ugh. Yes, it is true. Trump wants to end democracy. He wants to seize voting machines and change election results. But Biden yelled in a speech, guys. He yelled in a speech. Greg Bovino wore actual Nazi-adjacent attire. Bad and wrong. Bad and wrong.
Let's count the ways in which this is a horrible piece of... I mean, first of all, let's compare it to some other images, just so you see how bad a piece of imagery this is. It's insane. Okay, how about General Lux from Star Trek, from Star Wars: The Force Awakens? It's the same image. We're talking about the blood red background. We're talking about the dark outfit, the blood red background, and the people in the background or apparatchiks of the state. Okay, you are talking here about Man in the High Castle when John Smith is first introduced in the Vauxhall in New York.
An actual Nazi. That's what Joe Biden is because he had red lights behind him, guys. But when the Trump DHS is tweeting out actual white nationalist propaganda, when Stephen Miller is designing the immigration policy, when Bovino dresses like actual Nazi generals or whatever leaders, that's just bad and wrong. That's the lesser of two evils, apparently, because at least they're cutting taxes for the wealthy and they're kissing up to Netanyahu at least. So everything else is just bad and wrong.
I mean, like, it's this sort of imagery. The people who constructed this image, that was not Photoshopped, that picture of Joe Biden. That was a not Photoshopped image. I mean, Scar from Lion King. It's insane. What are they doing?
How does anyone take this man seriously? There are things I want to say that I will not say because I don't want to get my TikTok live flagged. But just a reminder, this is how he speaks about Biden with a red background, and how does he speak about Trump?
There's not some of both, meaning I think things can get worse under President Trump than they were heretofore. and I'm not going to deny that he's done things that I think are bad and wrong.
Bad and wrong. Bad and wrong. Actual authoritarian policy, actual corruption. Bad and wrong, guys. Bad and wrong. Biden gives a speech with some red lights. Satanic, dictatorial, and fascist. Because there was a soldier in the picture, this is some kind of fear tactic, apparently. But then when you actually threaten to arrest governors and mayors and send troops to their state without their consent, that's something different. That's not like a show of force meant to act as like a fear tactic. Right, okay.
Was very critical of his rhetoric, for example, between the election of 2020 and January 6th. But I do think that to ignore the fact
but
that
were any of these things disqualifying in a moral political sense, like election? Well, January 6th, for example.
Right. So I don't know what disqualifying means in the sense that I did not support him in the primaries.
That he would lose your faith and vote and support.
Smart people that act stupid to improve their proximity to power are the worst types of people. This applies to Ben Shapiro, J.D. Vance, Vivek Ramaswamy. Those three Ivy League law educated people who are intelligent, that they know how law works. They know that Trump's an authoritarian, but they pretend to genuinely believe the MAGA talking points to get closer to power. These are the worst types of people. They're worse than the true believers who actually think like, oh, Trump is amazing. At least they believe what they're saying. These people are cynical liars who care about nothing but power and money.
Forever.
Well, I mean, the only way to lose my faith and support and vote
is to give a speech in front of some red lights. Once Trump does that, it's over, guys. Oh, my God.
Forever would be for there to be an alternative that I find superior to him. This is the problem. When you're making voting decisions, would I want Donald Trump marrying into my family?
Make sure you guys are double tapping the screen, by the way.
Probably not. When it comes to my politicians, the problem is that once you say that the candidate is quote unquote disqualified, then you either have to sit out the election, which I did in 2016, right? I found both candidates to be insufficient. And then
why doesn't he just do that? Why didn't Ben Shapiro just say in 2024, listen, I don't like Kamala Harris's policy, too liberal for me. Trump's an authoritarian. I'm going to sit out. Still insane, because obviously Kamala Harris would be the better option there. But at least he could maintain a shred of integrity. But no, he doesn't just vote for Trump in 2024. He does a whole media tour. Campaigning for him. Flies around state to state. Spends money on trying to get Trump elected. And does he bring up any of his criticisms of Trump when he talks to him? I'd hope.
Joins us on the line right now here on the Ben Shapiro Show. President Donald Trump, Mr. President, it's an honor to have you on the line. Thanks so much for joining the show. Really appreciate it.
Well,
it's an honor to have you, Mr. Authoritarian, sir.
Very good, Ben. How you doing?
Thank God, doing well. I want to start by asking, Mr. President, what you're hearing on the ground from North Carolina. You've really been criticizing the Biden-Harris administration for their response to the fallout from Hurricane Helene. You've obviously been on the ground in places.
And also their red lights as well.
Like Georgia during this. What are you hearing on the ground in North Carolina?
Well, I was in North Carolina, and I got a pretty good dose because they asked me.
Listen, guys, Ben Shapiro, he just thinks that Trump's authoritarianism is the lesser of two evils because maybe Kamala Harris will marginally raise taxes on the wealthy. That's so fucking scary. Maybe she'll have red lights behind her. So he has to pick the lesser of two evils, who's the authoritarian that wants to destroy the American Constitution and lock up dissidents. He has to. It's the lesser of two evils, guys. At least in this interview, he'll hold them to account, right? At least he'll say, listen, President Trump, I like your economic policy, but we have to talk about your authoritarian tendencies. I'm sure he'll say that, right?
Could help them with Elon Musk, who's a friend of mine and endorsed me. And I said, yeah, I think I can. What do you need? And they said, we need the Starlink, which is a big deal because they had no communication whatsoever. They said that there was just no FEMA. You virtually don't see anybody from FEMA. You're seeing a lot of private people going around and helping, but they can't help like FEMA could if they did it right.
If only Joe Biden used the Trump tactic of saying, hey, if you're a blue state, kiss goodbye to your disaster relief. unless you acquiesce to my demands. So much better. Thanks.
Right. And they're very upset with what's happening with the federal government, as you probably have also heard. It's pretty sad, actually.
You know, Mr. President, Kamala Harris has been.
Oh, yes. And he has to start every sentence. Oh, Mr. President, Mr. President.
Pressure on Ron DeSantis for some reason. She seems to want to both suggest that she's in charge of hurricane response and also not in charge of hurricane response. So Hurricane Milton is obviously bearing down on Florida, your home state, and it's slated to be catastrophic.
There's one part here, which is truly enough to make your blood boil.
And we've got great people in our military. But think of it. I had no wars. Remember when Hillary Clinton during the debate said, he will cause wars. Look at him. He sounds like the kind of a guy that would cause wars. Well, the truth is, I was the kind of a guy that stopped wars. I had no wars. And just to finish is Viktor Orban, a tough guy, smart guy, runs, as you know, he runs Hungary. And he made the statement that if Trump comes back.
Viktor Orban, known authoritarian. Like the Viktor Orban playbook, and I believe the Erdogan playbook, heavily inspired Project 2025 and the complete capture of the executive branch under Trump. Mr. Shapiro, say something. You wrote an entire book on how there should be RICO criminal charges against Barack Obama because he used executive power in ways you don't like. Say something.
Wars. Look at him. He sounds like the kind of a guy that...
I'm sure he'll say something. Maybe I'm speaking too soon. He'll say something.
Well, the truth is, I was the kind of a guy that stopped wars. I had no wars. And just to finish is Viktor Orban, a tough guy, smart guy, runs, as you know, he runs Hungary. And he made the statement that if Trump comes back, everything will be settled. And I don't want to say why, because he did say why, but I don't want to say braggadocious. But he said Trump was a very tough guy, and nobody messed around with him.
Oh, yeah. Don't you love when the authoritarian leader says, this guy's a tough guy, no one's going to fuck with him? That doesn't put up any red flags for you? Yes, sir. Yes, President Trump. As long as there's no red lights behind you. You have my undying loyalty.
Let's take a look at another
damage President Trump, I thought, had done by being elected in 2016. I thought that he did a bunch of things I liked between 2016 and 2020. And then I did not like what he did with regard.
Translation. He cut taxes for the wealthy. He moved the U.S. Israel embassy to Jerusalem. He cut the Palestinian question out of Middle East talks by passing the Abraham Accords. That's why Ben likes him. Lower taxes and just glazing Israel as hard as possible.
To the election of 2020 and what I think are falsehoods that he told about winning that election and the idea that he was the actual victor and all that. And I didn't like what he said leading up to January 6th. Again, I'm very, very critical of that. And then I didn't support him in the primaries, and then he ended up winning the nomination. He was running against Kamala Harris. So I can either sit out the election again, which doesn't really achieve.
So in other words, what you're saying is that the potential of Kamala Harris, in your view politically, outweighs the support for what in essence was an insurrection on Capitol Hill. That's hard for me.
Yeah. What's this guy's name? Who's interviewing him? Does anyone know? David? David, stop assuming you're speaking to someone who's talking to you in good faith. Stop being so nice. Stop being so deferential. He understands what the fuck you just said. He's pretending not to because of audience capture. Because if he becomes a never Trump Republican, he has no more audience. Because no one on the fucking left wants to watch this guy. No one in the middle really wants to watch this guy. And the right has no appetite for an anti-Trump conservative right now. That's why Shapiro does this.
In your view politically, outweighs the support for what in essence was an insurrection on Capitol Hill. That's hard for me, to say the least. It's
hard for anyone acting in good faith who knows what's going on. You'd have to be a fucking liar to say otherwise.
I think that's so. First of all, I think that's a pretty poor way of putting it because that's not.
No, that's a way of putting it that makes clear that you're a liar. That's why you don't like it.
The way that we assess candidates in the real world, is who is more likely to perform the agenda that I see as important versus who is more likely to inhibit that agenda.
And once upon a time, his agenda was like small government, right? Again, I want everyone here to look this up afterwards. I think it's called The Criminal Case Against Barack Obama. It's not about civilian drone strikes, by the way. It's about Barack Obama using executive power in ways that Ben thinks are like government overreach. And he thinks it's criminal that Obama did that. Criminal. But when the Supreme Court gives us the presidential immunity decision, Shapiro likes it. He supports it. That decision is the antithesis to his fucking book. He's so spineless. He's such a political hack and fucking liar. Oh my God. There's not many people in American politics that make my blood boil in this way, because he is a rare example of someone intelligent who knows better, who knows how bad his own side is, and still says nothing. Not just says nothing, campaigns for these people. He flew around the country to campaign for Trump. The reason he came on Jubilee Surrounded for our debate, that was part of his pro-Trump tour. That was part of his campaign tour for Trump.
And so I can fully disapprove of what happened on January 6th and think it was quite terrible, and still acknowledge that Donald Trump as president from 2017 to 2021 did a better job than I think Joe Biden did.
There are.
Actually, no. Newsflash. If someone ran for president and said, I support single-payer health care, but I'm also going to end constitutional rights, I would not support that person. What the fuck? This guy's like, listen, man, if he's a fascist but he cuts taxes, I like the economic policy. What can I say? If he's a fascist and he gives Israel a lot of support, what can I say? Hell yeah. Okay, bro.
There are many people who consider themselves never Trumpers in the Republican Party. Not a decisive amount, certainly, but there's certainly a number of people in the Republican Party who see his moral transgression.
Newsflash. There is no appetite in the United States right now for an actual small government family values conservative, if that's even a thing. The right likes the authoritarianism. They want more authoritarianism. And the left, broadly speaking, has some form of progressive policy, or at least moderate policy, depending on who you're talking about, in the Democratic Party. There is no market for never Trump Republicans unless they want to start working with Democrats. And Ben can't do that. And here's why. Ben Shapiro is defined more by hatred of the left than by love of conservatism. This is a serious issue. This is how these people convince themselves to support fascism. The road to fascism is paved with weak conservatives who are like, oh, you hate the left too? Yeah, hop on board. We all hate the left. And then after they beat the left, they start doing fascist. Wait. I guess I can't say anything at this point. That's what it is. The never Trump Republicans who are wrong on all policy, but still say, hey, man, he's a fascist. I can't support him. They're motivated more by love of conservatism than they are by hatred of the left. But a lot of these people like Ben, they are first and foremost motivated by, I hate the American left. Everything is secondary, including hating fascism, including believing actually in small government. Everything else is ancillary.
Serious that they make a very different calculation than you do electorally.
I mean, sure, and they're entitled to that calculation. The question to me is always one of iteration. Okay, voting is one decision, and then supporting just because you vote for someone doesn't mean that you support everything that they do.
Ben, I think a lot of people know.
Listen, if you supported Mustache Man in Germany, doesn't mean you support the camps, okay? He did anti-cigarette propaganda campaigns and like anti-animal abuse campaigns, right? Listen, I just support the anti-cigarette stuff of Mustache Man. I just supported the infrastructure projects, bro. The liberals never talk about how Mustache Man paved the roads and reinvigorated manufacturing. I don't have to agree with the camps. That's the fucking logic that he's using here.
Your voice.
Actually, no, certain red lines, once they're crossed and you have no way to ameliorate that, I don't know.
They know about a lot of your opinions and points of view, but I don't know that
at least abstain from voting. At least abstain. Why the fuck are you supporting him and like campaigning for him?
About you. You had your first syndicated column as most 17-year-olds do when you were a teenager. How did that happen?
So when I went to UCLA, I'd skipped a couple of grades. I went to UCLA when I was 16.
Don't care.
Good enough to be printed in like a normal news. Don't say that
That's it. That's all we're doing. We're not giving this guy any more oxygen. That's going to make a great YouTube video. That little rant, however long that was, like 30 minutes. It's going to be a great YouTube video.
Another president, though. Let's take a look at another president, though. President Donald John Trump. Look at this. I got 4 numbers across for you on this screen here. They are all second.
Keep double tapping the screen, guys. Keep double tapping the screen. Come on. Peacefully and patriotically fight like hell. We're not going to have a country anymore.
Lows for the given pollster. What are we talking about? AP New York, 26 points below water. NBC, 22 points below water.
Yikes.
Yahoo, YouGov, 20 points below water. Quinnipiac, 19 points below water. So we're ranging from negative 19 points all the way to negative 26 points. You know, Kate, there's this question that folks keep asking, you know, where is the floor for Donald Trump? And I'm not sure there is a floor, because if there is one...
And that's why Shapiro is doing these appearances. He did one with the Pod Save America bros. He did one with David Pakman. He's talking to more like establishment figures from like the New Yorker and the New York Times. He sees the writing on the wall. And when this all devolves, he wants to be able to say, I was one of the good ones, guys. I admitted that fascism was kind of bad and wrong, even if I actively supported it. We're not letting this guy fucking rehabilitate his image after this. No. Yo. Chill. That Loki scared the fuck out of me.
Donald Trump, at least in term number 2, has just fallen through it to another low level.
How does this compare with this?
I swear to God, bro, a squirrel can fart like 10 miles away and she starts having like a fucking crash out. For what? For what? Bro, please.
Term, and how does this compare with Joe Biden?
Relax.
Okay,
You're
so
fine.
we look at these numbers right here. One of the things that Donald Trump had been arguing his
Don't make me
opponents
get the shock collar. Don't make me get the That's a joke.
Oh, you know what? He's doing better than he was doing in term number 1. No longer is that the case. What are we talking about here? Okay, net approval rating at this point in the term. Look at this. 22 points below water on average when you average all the pollsters from the last slide. That is actually lower. That is lower than he was at this point in term number 1, when he was 17 points below water. So he's doing 5 points worse, 5 points worse, and he's doing way worse than Joe Biden was doing at this point in his term number 1 when he was 13 points below water. So the bottom line is this: Donald Trump is setting new records for himself in term number 2.
Even the conservative pollsters, I believe it's Rasmussen, conservative pollster, always very friendly to Trump. Even they just recently said that Biden was more popular than Trump, according to our own polling. What do you think about the road Candace Owens has chosen? Haven't followed it closely, just heard she seems to be straddling the fence. Candace Owens is just, I don't know if she is crazy or she's pretending to be crazy, but she picked the crazy lane.
Setting new records for himself compared to where he was at this point in term number 1, and he's doing worse than Joe Biden, which is, of course, the comparison that Donald Trump does not want to be, because we all know what happened to Joe Biden. His party lost the House in term number 1, that in midterm elections, and of course, Joe Biden was not reelected to another term. At this point, the numbers are no bueno for the President of the United States.
No bueno.
What's driving this that you're seeing right now?
Okay, Kate. You know what? This is the segment we have done it over.
Can we take a moment to just die inside about how good AI is getting? I had this bookmark for the live. This is crazy. I think it's called Sea Dance. This is an AI video.
Mr. Trump, what an honor. Just huge.
The future is bright.
So, Donald Trump is ass levermation. Mr. Trump.
Bro, it's over. It's so over. You don't think that Trump has put all the intelligence agencies on making a bunch of fake videos of the election being stolen that they can release when election time comes? You don't think they're going to weaponize this? They're going to create some video of like Joe Biden getting out of a van and like picking up a ballot box.
What an honor. Just
This is so cooked, bro.
Mr. Trump, what an incredible honor.
Even the zoom, the camera zoom. This is horrible. This is so fucked. I don't know how If it was just fascism, I'd say, okay, we can win this. It's fascism and it's AI together. History, I don't know if we have a parallel for this in history. Also, they just revised down the jobs numbers by like 1 million, right? Also, the MAGA people are running around saying, huzzah, the CPI numbers are fantastic. The CPI numbers that we got for year-over-year inflation are missing a month and a half of data from the government shutdown from October 1st to like November 14th. We were not collecting any CPI data. Well, I think it's like panel 4 of the housing numbers they take into account. They take into account in April and October. We never got the October numbers, so we're still going off the April ones from last year when it comes to housing. Of course inflation looks low. So number one, inflation is higher than they're telling us. Number two, jobs are lower than they're telling us. That seems like we're not in stagflation, but we're getting a little too close for comfort to stagflation.
And over again, because he keeps setting new lows for himself.
And by the way, the Trump people know that they're cooked. If the public polling is this bad, what the fuck do you think their internal polling shows? Before Biden dropped out in 2024, the public polling showed that he wasn't in a strong position. They had internal polling in the Biden campaign that showed Trump winning close to 400 electoral votes. The campaigns usually have way better numbers than the public pollsters have. And if the public pollsters are showing minus 30 with independents, basically, what do you think that they have in their internal numbers? That's why the fuck they want to rig the elections. Because if we have free and fair elections, Democrats are winning the House and Senate. And 2028 is going to be like 2008. They know that. They know that.
Well, we're talking about independence. We're talking about independence. When you lose the center of the electorate, you lose the American people. Trump's net approval rating among independents, at this point, you go back term number 1, he was 17 points below water. Now, according to Quinnipiac, he is 27 points below water. I don't understand how this works out well for the President of the United States. When you are 27 points below water, underwater, with the center...
This is why the media is bothering me, because remember, what did Christine Ohm just say?
Is another one of those critical infrastructure responsibilities that I have as well. And I would say that many people believe that it may be one of the most important things that we need to make sure we trust is reliable, and that when it gets to election day that we've been proactive to make sure that we have the right people voting, electing the right leaders to lead this country.
I don't know if you're supposed to say that part publicly, dude. You're supposed to just say it's election integrity and then quietly rig the election. What do you mean the right people voting to elect the right leaders? Like, bro, minus 27 with independents. And at the same time, they're saying we have to be proactive to make sure we have the right people voting, electing the right leaders. As the polling shows that they're on track, I think, to lose the House and the Senate. I think if we have free and fair elections in 2026, which is a big if we do, Democrats are winning the Senate, I think. I'd bet money on that. I think Democrats would take back the Senate. And I think they know that. You've actually had Republican donors and pollsters have leaked conversations saying, hey man, this is not looking great in the Senate. This is not supposed to even be remotely close. The prediction markets have it at 60-40 right now, I think. Or 65-35. They were not planning for that. And if it's Tallarico versus Paxton, who, correct me if I'm wrong, if there's any Texans in here, isn't Paxton not even the incumbent? And he's also known to be extremely, extremely corrupt. Wasn't Paxton the one that was impeached by Republicans? Or am I mixing him up with someone? If it's Paxton versus Tallarico, I think Tallarico will win that race. I think he will. Maybe I'm wrong, though. I'm not super familiar with the ins and outs of Texas.
Critical infrastructure responsibilities that
Yeah. So I think the Republicans want Cornyn versus Crockett, I think. And I think nothing against Jasmine Crockett. I love Crockett. But I'd like to see Tallarico versus Paxton.
Too many refugees.
Okay, again, wrong video. But
electorate with independents, you lose, your party loses. You know, I've made the comparisons before, oh, he's more underwater than Greg Louganis. I've made the comparisons with all those different divers. And the bottom line is this, you can continue to make those, but over time, when you keep making those same comparisons, they run a little bit old. But at this point, I don't really know who to even compare Donald Trump to.
And here's my theory for why, if we have free and fair elections, the midterms will be a bloodbath for Republicans, peacefully and patriotically. I think turnout from anyone to the left of Donald Trump, whether it's Democratic socialists or like a normie suburban moderate, the turnout for those anti-Trump voters will be extremely high in midterms. And on top of that, the turnout from the Trump people, I think, is going to be pretty depressed. They're not exactly happy right now with the Epstein stuff, with the flip-flopping on tariffs and manufacturing and stuff. They're not exactly frothing at the mouth to turn out and vote for Republicans. Jasmine is fighting Tallarico as the elite? Hasn't Tallarico not taken a single dollar of big PAC money? Wasn't Tallarico a public school teacher at one point? Listen, I'm not a big fan of infighting, so I purposefully didn't criticize Crockett because I have criticisms of Crockett because, hey, I still love Crockett. She cooked Pam Bondi in the hearing, and if she's the nominee, I will happily campaign for her as best as I can. I still think Tallarico is a much better option. I don't know why there's this weird thing happening where, and again, this is just crazy people seem like a larger group on social media than they actually are in the real world. Why is it that Tallarico, and I think a lot of Tallarico supporters are like, hey man, let's keep it constructive. We don't have to do infighting. But then, not everyone who supports Crockett, but some Crockett people are just trying to go after Tallarico, and it's like, bro, why? He hasn't done it to her. I don't know. Crockett is the most intelligent one running. That's subjective intelligence of who's running. That's very subjective. Tallarico's sole qualification is there's not just one qualification. Number one, he runs very heavily on a populist, anti-corruption, anti-billionaire agenda. He won in a Trump district, which means he can flip things, which you kind of need in somewhere like Texas. His campaign financing, I think, is cleaner than Crockett's history is. I don't understand why we can't just say, okay, you prefer Crockett, I prefer Tallarico. I love both of them. I don't know why. I'm not here to attack Jasmine Crockett. I don't know why we have to do this. This is really weird to me.
And he's solo with the center of the electorate.
261 days to go. Yes, the midterms may seem far off, but they are starting to dominate the dynamics here in Washington and are fresh on President Trump's mind. As the GOP now confronts a daunting political environment, Trump is taking his pitch to the nation's battlegrounds. Even before US
I agree.
troops in
Here's the thing. Jasmine Crockett is a fantastic communicator. I prefer Tallarico's style of communication. I think it works better for somewhere like Texas. And Tallarico, to me, also is a very unique political talent. He's a very unique political talent. He is someone who genuinely can appeal to moderates and independents without sacrificing progressivism. He's a progressive with progressive convictions who still appeals to non-progressive voters. That seems like a pretty good combination to me.
Carolina, where he urged them to vote Republican.
Biden, who is the worst president in the history of our country. 0 illegal aliens have been admitted.
I agree. I think Tallarico is a once-in-a-generation talent. And I disagree. I don't think Crockett appeals to no one. Crockett is a fantastic speaker, a very good fighter, Really good at holding the feet to the fire of the Trump administration. But I think if we're talking about a Texas statewide race, I agree. I think Tallarico has future POTUS potential. Tallarico, to me, is just a very unique candidate. Tallarico took money from Miriam Adelson for his Senate campaign, his U.S. Senate campaign. Isn't like over 90% of his Senate campaign like small dollar donations? I don't know. And I'm not interested in... listen, I have criticisms of Crockett as well. I'm not interested in bashing her right now. I'm not going to lie. So.
And that's done by the radical left. Michael, will you come here for a second, please? He's running for the Senate, and if he gets in, you're going to be taken care of. If he doesn't get in, we're going to be stripping the military like they always do, the Democrats. When I heard they were taking the name Fort Bragg off, I said, no, they're kidding. They're not going to do it. They did. They took the name off. We got it back very quickly, but they took it off. And if we don't win the midterms, they'll take it off again. It's another reason you have to vote for us, because they'll change it back to whatever it might be.
And this weekend, Trump also renewed his calls to place new restrictions on voting, as he started to see some fraying within his coalition, all while possible 2028 contenders, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, flocked to Europe this weekend, where they're getting some attention. Let's break this all down with my excellent panel: Tia Mitchell from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, CNN's Phil Mattingly, and Julie Davis from the New York Times. Good morning to you all. So look, Trump is, of course, as he does, demand total unity as we head into this very daunting stretch for the GOP. His party wants him to focus on issue number one, the economy. And we've seen time and time again Trump trip on his own message or create distractions and do things that are causing significant pushback.
There is one thing I want to play, though, real quick on the topic of Tallarico and Crockett, which, take it for what you will. Let's just watch this real quick. Here's the sound.
Jasmine Crockett, James Tallarico, they are both running for U.S. Senate in Texas, and the Democratic primary is coming up on March 3rd. Who has more conflicts of interest? Who has more financial integrity? Let's talk about it. All right, so 75% of Jasmine Crockett's funds comes from individuals, and of those individual donations, 58% of those funds come from small individual donations. Those are donations under $200, while 42% of those funds come from large individual donations above $200. That looks pretty good, but then we get to the 23% of her funds that come from PACs. Of the over $700,000 of PAC money that she received last cycle, almost $300,000 of that came from corporate PACs. And then quickly on her personal finances, she has one of the lowest reported net worths in Congress of only $24,000, except the entirety of that is held in individual stocks. All these factors, including a few others that you can check out on our website, integrityindex.us, resulted in us giving Jasmine Crockett a grade of a D+. All right, so moving on to James Tallarico. Since he's not a current member of Congress, we can't use what he raised last cycle. We have to use what his Senate campaign has raised so far. So they last had to report on the 30th of September, and at that point they had raised $6.2 million, 100% of which came from individuals. Of those individual donations, 67% of those funds came from small individual donations, while 33% of those funds came from large individual donations. Now, I had known his campaign made a commitment not to take corporate PAC money, but I did not know that they hadn't taken any PAC money up to this point. It's honestly very unique. Moving to his personal finances, he's made a commitment not to hold or trade any individual stocks. However, his financial disclosure doesn't have to come out until January 7th, so I'm not really comfortable giving him a full grade until I can look at what assets he has for myself. Jasmine Crockett.
Fair. And by the way, I don't think that taking PAC money is like disqualifying. I just prefer that you don't. And Tallarico doesn't. And I think Tallarico has a better chance of winning a statewide race in Texas. That's my calculus.
Within the ranks just this past week.
And I will also say, if someone is going to those lengths to avoid big money, I would have a lot more faith in them pushing legislatively laws or resolutions to minimize the effects of campaign finance, or like to reform campaign finance. And yeah, the Miriam Adelson money, I think that's like a gambling, right? That's to support gambling. And again, like, I don't know why this has to be like a fight. Like, if you think Crockett's better and you have your reasons, that's fine. I think Tallarico's better. I'm sure that they both have flaws. They both have benefits to them, or opposed to them. I don't know why there's this campaign to like character assassinate Tallarico and just make him seem like, oh, he's so horrible. They're both great in different ways. I just think Tallarico probably has a better chance statewide in Texas. I don't know why we have to make it something toxic.
Try and fail to indict 6 House Democrats. A lot of Republicans uncomfortable with that. How he's handled these ICE surges, particularly in Minneapolis in recent weeks, has caused pushback among Republicans. Nervous.
The video was talking about his U.S. Senate fundraising. And saying she's objectively more qualified, there's no such thing as like objectively more qualified. What qualifications are relevant and what experience is relevant and what character traits are relevant to governing on a national level is going to be subjective. What you might think is important versus what someone else might think is important. But okay. And like all the polling I've seen shows Tallarico outperforming. We got leaked internal polls which showed that Tallarico would beat Paxton by 3 points. He would lose to Cornyn by 1 point, and that both Cornyn and Paxton would beat Crockett statewide. So, oh well. Moving on.
Too far.
Moving on.
Of course, that racist video of the Obamas that he later was forced to delete, though did not admit a mistake. Phil,
I will also say, by the way, on the topic of like Trump having really low approval, I genuinely think that the Alex Preddy murder and the Obama monkey video he tweeted out, those two really, 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 really broke through into the mainstream. Where like people who never bat an eye at politics were like, this is fucking insane. This is like really fucking bad. And I think that there is an underestimation of how hated Donald Trump is in this country right now. And how motivated people are to vote against him. Which, by the way, is why they're trying so hard to rig the elections. So listen, the Tallarico Crockett discussion may just be moot if they pull some weird shit in Texas. If they're gonna pull weird shit on the election anywhere, it's gonna be in Texas, right? Because the entire state apparatus there is gonna be amenable to whatever Trump wants to do. So
into the midterms with his party,
not great. I think. And Monty, honestly, like I watch you work the halls every single week, and it's always a really good barometer of when do we hit self-preservation mode for members of Congress. And I think that
I don't know who Attorney Verity is. Fake liberal outrage about racism. I don't know why you have to attack my character and like whether or not I care about racism because I have a different preference than you in a Democratic primary in Texas. This is not the type of politics I want in the Democratic Party. It's like unnecessarily antagonistic and toxic. Like I've consistently not spoken like that to you. If you just want to say this is, I like don't care about racism as someone who's dealt with certain types of racism, that just seems like an unnecessary low blow. So I guess cool.
Grip on the party has been, and I think we should all be very careful to pronounce some grand break or diminishment of his authority over the Republican Party and over his members, which has been so kind of ironclad over the course of the last 13 months. But the moment where Republican lawmakers, particularly frontline Republican lawmakers, start looking around and
you know what we could do that I was thinking of doing? In light of all the discussion on the Democratic nominee for 2028, I was thinking, what if we make a Google Doc and just go through every potential nominee and their economic policy, their foreign policy, and their social policy, and like whatever other factors there are that are relevant to them, and just make a big doc comparing all of them. Because honestly, a lot of the discussion right now about like Newsom versus Pritzker versus Ossoff versus Whitmer is like a lot of people, including myself, are taking a stance on this without knowing the full extent of like, okay, what bills have they signed? What legislation have they sponsored or co-sponsored? What is their public-facing rhetoric been like? What are their convictions? Like one thing I don't think is talked about enough is like, and this needs to make a comeback. Maybe it's corny. I think that earnesty is a trait in a politician that is people don't even pay any mind to anymore because everyone is so fucking cynical that it's like unimaginable that someone could seek public office and be earnest. And we should never just assume people are earnest. I think the baseline assumption should be that there's some cynicism that we have. But if I have two people, both of whom agree with me on every policy bullet point, but one of them just seems to care a lot more, and they like really, like you can just tell when they talk about it, like, okay, they actually give a fuck about this. That to me is like relevant, and that is more of a qualitative analysis and less quantitative and like less on paper. So like there's going to be subjectivity in analyzing who's like earnest and who has conviction, but nonetheless, I think it is very relevant.
If I need to actually win in November, I need to start creating some distance, not dramatic scale of distance that we've seen perhaps in past administrations, but I think what we've seen over the course of the last couple of weeks, but in particular this week as well, is some of those members saying there are opportunities for me to break. The repercussions of that from Trump's Truth Social posts are not in the kind of cost-benefit analysis bad enough for me to not want to risk this, and therefore I'm going to move forward. Is it a grand kind of fracturing of the party? Absolutely not.
And typically in a normal, what's normal anymore, but like in a previous administration, the president would be like, okay, break with
every other president says, like, I get it. Like, this is what you have to do. Trump is not that president, and how that dynamic plays out in the coming weeks, we're going to see more of this, is going to be really, really
The only reason I'm holding off on doing the Google Doc thing right now is like, how hard is it to go through and find policy for each of these candidates? And it's like, I don't know if I just want to use like AI overview and be like, okay, what are these people's accomplishments? Although it probably would be correct and useful. I don't want to be fully basing it off of like AI. AI could provide maybe primary sources to go check for each of these people, but the thing is also when you're comparing these candidates, you're comparing governors to senators to Congress people. And the way that they would engage with politics is going to vary a lot, right? Like a governor is going to be the easiest person to judge how would this person be as a president, because a governor is a chief executive of a state. So we can see how they interact with their state legislatures and state courts and all those things. Whereas like in the case of a senator or a congressperson, there we're looking at like, okay, what legislation have they sponsored or co-sponsored? But then when you're looking at what they voted for, it's going to be a lot more strategic. Like, okay, they voted for this legislation, and it's like 60% if it's good, and 20% if it's mid, and then 20% if it's bad. So how do we judge that vote for that legislation? You know what I mean? Because certain people are going to say, wow, how could they vote for a legislation that was 20% really bad? And someone else will say, well, it was 20% mid, typical status quo. And then I might say, well, it was like 60% good, right? And it's like hard to know how much you weight, even within a given piece of legislation, how much you weight each subsection of it. And yeah, can we stop fighting in chat, please, about Tallarico versus Crockett? Look, I don't know what this accomplishes, guys. I've made my opinion on this clear. Yeah. I do want to watch this as someone who likes AOC, and maybe someone can tell me, because I've only seen clips. Is it true that AOC like really fumbled this? Was it a speech? Is it true that AOC fumbled this, or was that just like a Twitter narrative? Because I saw Breaking Points covered it, and they were also saying she fumbled it, but I don't want to just take their word for it without watching the primary source. Is this true? I really don't want it to be true. She fumbled it? Damn.
Being settled in the northern part of
Let's see.
Essen.
Let's watch.
His part of
I'm going to
Essen,
go into this with an open mind as someone who likes AOC.
the poor part of Essen, where he said,
I just found you. I'm a Texan. What is your stance on Jasmine and Tallarico? Sorry, not trying to make you mad. Yes, we were just talking about that. If you want to get my stance in depth, head on over to my YouTube, go to this live, and just like rewind like 10, 15 minutes. You'll see my thoughts. But broadly speaking, I support Tallarico. I think he's a very unique political talent with a lot of national potential. I think his rhetoric is amazing. I think he could be a contender for 2028. So I like Tallarico. I still really like Jasmine Crockett as well. So whichever one of them is the nominee, I will support them with a big smile on my face. But I strongly prefer Tallarico to Crockett. I think he's going to win the primary. I think he's going to win the general. But hey, man, if I'm wrong, I'll happily take Crockett over Paxton or Cornyn or any other Republican in that state. So,
said schools were already struggling, where affordable housing was already scarce, where food banks were already overwhelmed. He said Nordhessen couldn't cope. The SPD, the Social
and
Democrats...
this is kind of long. If anyone has a timestamp for where AOC fumbled it, or was it like she fumbled the whole thing?
And the protest. So he left.
And what is the subject of this panel? The rise of populism. Okay.
Deeper reason he left, he said, was that he felt that the Social Democrats had...
And by the way, I'm confident that if Tallarico wins the nomination, Crockett will endorse him. And if Crockett wins the nomination, Tallarico will endorse her. I think they both even said that. So
betrayed its base, working class base, people like him. He didn't feel at home anymore. They had become the elite. And so for him, there is something going on that means that the center-right and the center-left have become practically indistinguishable. The choice is no longer left and right. The choice is kind of between the people and the elite. Germany is kind of a special case because the Social Democrats have not just mimicked center-right economic policies, they've actually governed with the center-right many times. They're in government with them now. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you are a Democrat, you are a member of the House of Representatives. Has the left betrayed the people? Has your party betrayed its base?
Yes, what was the name of the individual from your story?
Guido.
It's funny that you asked this question because...
Is the mic working?
Is the microphone on? Okay, thank you. Thank you. It's funny that you asked this question about Guido because in many ways I relate to him. I share many aspects of his story. I was first elected when I was in 2018, and I was a waitress in...
One thing that I like about Cortez, which is something similar I like about Tallarico, is like she comes from being a waitress. He comes from being a public school teacher. I feel like the experience you have from before you got into politics probably shapes a lot of your character. And again, character and earnestness and conviction, these are so qualitative, so someone else can say, actually, no, like, what about this or that about their character? So, like, there is an inherent issue in even discussing, oh, this person seems to be of good character, or this person seems to be well-intentioned or earnest or have a lot of conviction. Is like, to me, those are very important, like the intangibles, but because they're qualitative, it's very hard to debate in favor of that. You know what I mean? Because someone else can just say, I don't think so. I get a different vibe.
New York City.
It is kind of
I had
vibes
no
a little
health insurance. I could not pay my rent. And I consistently saw a party that championed special interests, the elite, and a Democratic Party that was very much kind of telling working people that everything was fine when it in fact wasn't. And after I was elected, I remember I was crossing this threshold, and there was this closed-door meeting of many high-ranking Democratic Party officials, people that you see in the news and all of that. And they derived...
Mamdani's another example of someone who I think he's earnest. I think he believes the stuff he says he believes. And I said this on my last live. Mamdani's a bit to my left on certain issues. On certain issues, I love him. You could show me a Democratic candidate who aligns more with me on policy on paper, but I'd probably still prefer Mamdani to them because when someone actually really cares and really believes what they're saying, I think that they will have a certain ambition with which they pursue their agenda that someone else who is more obsessed with like technocracy and norms, they won't have that same hunger. You know what I mean? Even if on paper they support all the right policy. I do really think that character and conviction play a much bigger role in how good of a leader someone is than what are the bullet points on their issues page online. So, and this is why, like, a lot of people said, oh, why are you criticizing Trump's character? I think it's relevant. I think character is very relevant for, like, elected leaders. It is very hard to judge it, though, which is the issue.
Behind closed doors at that time, a long time ago. They derided many of the populist demands.
And yeah, it is smart that Tallarico doesn't stick to labels like Democratic, Socialist, or Moderate. That's one issue that I have with AOC is, like, maybe I'm wrong. And this is a genuine question. I do not know what the penalty would be in a national election for having the word socialist in your name. Maybe it's nothing. If Trump can win after January 6th, maybe people are making a big deal of something that's actually not a big deal, which is that if you're a good candidate, you'll win, regardless of whatever label is on your name. But there are enough older voters where I start to wonder, even if it's like a 1-point penalty, a 0.5 point penalty for having the word socialist in your identification, how significant is that? Because you can have all the exact same policy positions and then just not use the word socialist to describe yourself. But
I had run my campaign on, and I had defeated a 20-year Democratic incumbent that was part of Democratic Party leadership. And they said $15 minimum wage at that time, way too high, too severe. The idea of tuition-free public colleges and universities, too far. Expanding health insurance and Medicare, too extreme. And these are all the things that I, as a wage...
to Attorney Verity, I don't have anything against public defenders or anyone else. Like that's also a great experience. The teacher and waitress point I make is that it is, and this applies also to public lawyers as well to a different extent though, especially with public school teachers, it is a very low-paying, ungratifying job, which is the same with public defenders as well. But my point there is like, there's a certain type of politician who off rip was in the Ivy League circles and in the corporate circles. And like, that's not disqualifying necessarily, depends on how they govern, right? But there is a certain character that I think is built. Number one, by getting run through the gauntlet of being a public middle school teacher, because middle schoolers are fucking difficult. And being a bartender, drunk people ordering food, I'm guessing, are fucking difficult. And if someone was a public defender or anything else, it's also obviously deserves a lot of kudos. My point in bringing those things up was not to belittle any other sector or any other job. It was just to uplift those ones, because I think that those are often overlooked.
Had campaigned on and had been major pain points in my life. And then they said, we have to listen to working class people more. And I think that encapsulates much of the betrayal that
hungry people are different, drunk or not, yeah.
Class in the United States had felt. But we have also come a long way since then, and we have a long way to go. The United States right now is experiencing a political pendulum, and depending, really, the party that is seen most as betraying the working class tends to be the governing party in this moment. Right now, that happens to be the Republican majority. But really, what we are seeing over the last 8 years, I think, has been a growing recognition that of those past errors that go back, that include military interventionism in the Iraq War, that include a recognition of NAFTA as a failed policy for many rural and working class communities. And now I think we are moving in this direction of increased recognition that we have to have a working class centered politics if we are going to succeed, and also if we are going to stave off the scourges of authoritarianism, which also provides political siren calls to allure people into finding scapegoats to blame for rising economic inequality, both domestically and globally.
So when you run for president...
So far, totally coherent answer. Even if you disagree on substance, I was told, or I saw that she was like not making sense. Maybe that happens later, but that made complete sense.
Are you going to impose a wealth tax or a billionaire's tax?
I don't think that I don't think that anyone, and that we don't have to wait for any one president to impose a wealth tax. I think that it needs to be done expeditiously.
And interesting, you never wrote about...
You would need a president to sign it. I guess I get her point that like that's like a legislative accomplishment more than like a presidential one. But yeah, wealth taxes are not the best way to bring in revenue. I'll say that. You're better off lifting the cap on payroll taxes and creating new brackets for payroll taxes. You're better off taxing large loans used for consumption, like where billionaires are buying houses or yachts or whatever by leveraging equity to get low interest loans. We should be taxing that. When people have large sums of wealth, the most efficient way to tax that is whenever they leverage it, whenever they use that wealth to their advantage, right? To buy something or to do whatever else.
Wealth tax recently, and of course the big argument against this is always capital flight. The US is actually uniquely placed to do it because you guys tax on the basis of citizenship, so people can't flee, you know? And even if you change your citizenship, there's basically an exit tax because you have to pay a tax on unrealized capital gains. I learned this just recently. Manfred Weber, you are the president of the European People's Party, which is a group of conservative Christian democratic parties in the European Parliament, not far-right parties, but you have recently been voting occasionally with the far-right parties, breaching
Make sure you guys are double tapping the screen as much as possible.
Firewall.
Fight like hell. We're not going to have a country
with
anymore.
J.D. Vance, who spoke here 1 year ago and told us all that this firewall is undemocratic? And if so, do you think that your party in Germany should actually be in coalition with the AfD instead of the Social Democrats?
Well, having J.D. Vance's speech of last year in mind, I 100% disagree with what he said there. And my party, the European People's Party, is the party of Schuman, of Adenauer, of de Gasperi, of those who founded the European Union. Afterwards, people like Václav Havel, of also Walesa from Poland, you know. So after the reunification, that is in a way the heritage of us as European People's Party. And to mention AfD in Germany, to mention nationalists in other countries, you know, that is totally the opposite what we stand for. My party, my predecessor as EPP party president is Donald Tusk in Poland, you know. He's fighting hard every day against Kaczynski, against Konfederacja, there to keep Poland in Europe and to be part of this European family. So that's our DNA. There's a clear.
I don't know what bro is talking about. I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with Polish politics like that. Where's AOC? Hello? You got fucking President Snow from the Hunger Games. Where's AOC? There we go.
Only France, for example, struck fine out recently that everywhere.
Very sensitive to public opinion.
It's an interesting point that you raised there, because it's sort of this idea of democratic resilience in a way.
Wealth tax is kind of bad. I think wealth taxes are really bad. I mean, I guess it depends on how it's administered, but the idea of a wealth tax is there's a lot of wealth that we're not capturing in government revenue. And that is true. But the question is the method of how do you get that wealth into the government revenue? And that's a methodology question. And I just don't see the argument for why a wealth tax is the best way to do that versus fixing a lot of our existing tax code and creating some new taxes.
Think holistically about security. It's not just defense budgets, right? It's about people voting and people feeling safe, people feeling secure and happy and represented by their governments. And I wonder to the extent that maybe this is something I can throw to you, Alexandria. Defense budgets have been rising everywhere. You guys have been spending a lot on defense for a long time, but a lot of governments now have very serious debt problems. And so there's a trade-off, right? I mean, if you spend more on defense, you spend less on other things. In France, for example, struck fine out recently that the interest payment on
This is a really interesting point that I need to read more about this, so take my upcoming opinion with a grain of salt, which I say for every foreign policy opinion I express, because holy fuck, I think I have a decent grasp of domestic policy. Foreign policy is like the most complicated thing on the face of the earth. And anyone who comes and speaks to you about foreign policy with like 100% conviction, be a little bit skeptical of them unless they have like decades of educational experience in the field. With that being said, like one thing which I think may end up being a silver lining to Trump is my understanding is that after World War II, the world order essentially was going to be that America was going to project its power by having military bases everywhere, including a lot in Western Europe, or just throughout Europe, right? And that America, insofar as it was doing that, became the de facto security guarantor for Europe, right? A lot of Europe after World War II is like, okay, America is kind of like our personal police force, like our personal defense force, for all intents and purposes, because of Article 5 of NATO and a whole host of other things, which is like our presence in those countries, right? And that because of that, a lot of these European countries, their own defense capabilities started to atrophy as they shifted towards a lot more social spending, which social spending is based, but they shifted to that social spending on the back of America filling in the gaps for their defense spending. And that created a situation where now they don't have much to work with for themselves in terms of defense spending and military spending. And it seems to be mutually exclusive that you can have a unipolar world order where America is like the most influential by far, but then also have like some form of like equality for all states, because that would be by definition multipolarism, right? And I think Europe is now learning the hard way that they can't just take American support for granted, because a crazy guy like Trump could come in and just fully throw it all into question. And now it seems to be the case that a lot of these Western European countries are going, okay, we have to start, number one, strengthening international relations and trade relations with a whole host of other countries. And number two, we have to start building up our own militaries, because we can't rely on Trump to step in if Article 5 is triggered. I mean, Trump was threatening to trigger Article 5 by attacking fucking Denmark. So, like, this is maybe not the best way to get them to do that, but it is a move towards a more multipolar world order. And yeah, we helped them rebuild. We helped a lot of the world rebuild. And man, this foreign policy is complicated. I don't know if multipolar is better than unipolar. I don't know. Right now, we're kind of in a bipolar system. A little bit different than the Cold War era was. But man, I hesitate to even think out loud about foreign policy on live because it's so fucking complicated, bro. Holy shit. It's like, I know maybe 0.01% of what there is to know about foreign policy. And like, even in debates, I'll speak to someone else who knows a different 0.01% of foreign policy. And because I don't know their 0.01%, they're like, you don't know what you're talking about. It's like, bro, neither do you, though. You just know like a different fun fact than I do. You saw a different documentary than I did. In my podcast, which is genuinely coming soon, thanks to Chorus, God bless Chorus, I now can have access, hopefully, thankfully, to actual experts in these fields. So when my podcast starts, what you can look forward to is me talking to actual immigration experts, economic experts, and foreign policy and history experts, bro. I want to talk to like some geopolitics and history college professors from across the ideological spectrum and just ask them, how the fuck does this shit work? Because ain't no one on TikTok who can give you a good answer to that question unless they're educated in it. This is another issue with the Trump era, is like we have so heavily devalued academia. And like, yes, are certain people in academia prone to blind spots? Absolutely, right? There's a big disconnect between academics and the average person. Like, they failed to communicate effectively during COVID, for example. So academia has an issue with communicating in a way that is intelligible for the average person. But on the flip side, there's been a big devaluing of expertise. I think if someone has studied history and geopolitics for like 10 fucking years at a PhD level, or they teach it in a college, I'm not bro, he knows more than me. Why the fuck am I debating this guy? Even if he's wrong on something, he arrived at his wrong opinion through a lot more evidence than I might have arrived at my right opinion. Does that make sense? So what I try to do with my platform is bridge the gap between expertise and the average person, right? So like, you've heard me explain elasticity and concentration of market power and marginal utility, which I don't think are complicated topics. A lot of what I learned in economics is not hard to understand. It can be hard to communicate. And when I see economists talking about the economy, they're talking to other economists. They word what they're saying so that other professors and other economists understand them, and they don't word it so that the vast majority of people can understand it, even though it's fully understandable. Like, not much that I learned in economics is like, oh, you could never understand, you silly normies. Like, no, you actually could understand, but it's just like, it has to be explained in a certain way. So look forward to that in the podcast.
Annually is now bigger than the entire education sector. So you have a situation where all budgets are going down, only defense is going up. And it does raise the question, should we not invest in democratic resilience by providing good public services and spending money on that in order to actually protect our democracies internally as well as externally?
Yes, that's absolutely right. You know, I think one of the connections and relationships that is under discussed, particularly in the security space, is the fact that I believe we're seeing an economy, across economy around the world, including the United States, that extreme levels of income inequality lead to social instability and drives, in a sense, in authoritarianism, right-wing populism, and very dangerous domestic internal politics.
Well, there's two things. Increasing, not just economic, increasing socioeconomic, and I'm not going on a podcast, I'm talking about my own podcast that I'm starting, increasing socioeconomic inequality, and I think weakening institutions. And those don't necessarily have to have a causal relationship. It is true that probably increasing socioeconomic inequality can weaken institutions, but I think a lot of our weakening of institutions comes as a result of the institutions being designed in outdated ways that are not built to deal with the modern era, and like the proliferation or the promulgation rather of the internet. So she's fully right. I think there's a few things that are going to lead to the rise of authoritarianism. Identity crisis across society, increasing socioeconomic inequality, and like weak institutions. Weak for whatever reason it may be, whether it's their fault or someone else's fault. I think those are like the big three.
That extreme levels of income inequality lead to social instability and drives, in a sense, in...
And again, the reason I say it's not just economic inequality, it's socioeconomic inequality, is because there are certain social experiences that are tied to economic status. Like, the reason upper middle class people are viewed maybe a certain way by working class people is not just purely because they're making more money on paper. It's like, if you're upper middle class, when you're in high school, you have an SAT tutor from at least junior year of high school, if not sooner. Then you have a higher SAT score. Then when you apply for college, you have some kind of legacy admission leg up because someone you knew went to that college, right? Then when you graduate college, not only did you get to go to a better college and maybe get a better degree, then all of your networking is like, oh yeah, my dad's friend works at this company, he can get me an interview there. Or my mom's friend knows this guy who knows that guy. The networking, I said this once before, it's not a meritocracy, it's a LinkedInocracy, okay? It's all fucking LinkedIn and connections and all this stuff. And like, networking in the job market is a massive function of the social circles you grow up in. And even the geographic area you live in. If you live in certain areas and if you're poor, even if you are the most qualified person on earth, getting your foot in the door at elite institutions is way harder. Because those elite institutions structurally advantage other people, and those advantages are self-perpetuating. It's the same families, the same friend groups, the same social circles. And you can't just, it's like such a, yeah, it's not just a complex, it's a multifaceted problem, which is why I think I want someone who runs for president who, there's a very tough needle to thread here. I've been thinking about this a lot recently. There's a very tough needle to thread between being strongly motivated by values and convictions. Like, I really believe in some shit. There's a way that I want the world to be that it is not right now. And my life's purpose in the public sphere is to push the world further in that direction. That on the one hand, and then on the other hand, the understanding that the world is very, very, very complicated and very, very, very nuanced. And black and white simple solutions very, very rarely can solve complex problems. When I look at American politics, I'm sometimes disheartened to see that very few people can maintain both in their head at the same time. Some people go so off the deep end in the direction of being ideological and being motivated by convictions and values that they refuse to engage with the pragmatic considerations of existing in the world in a way that is effective. On the other hand, some people go so far off the deep end with technocratic nuance and deference to institutions and understanding constraints that they lose sight of the fact that if you fully defer to those pragmatic constraints, you lose sight of any sort of forward motion. You have nothing to propel you forward anymore. You just get stuck in that muck of the system, and you no longer have this drive or this hunger or this ambition to really push and get some shit done within the confines, right? This is why I call myself an idealistic pragmatist, in that I am very pragmatic. I want to actually see results. I want to get things done. I don't want to ignore real hurdles that exist. At the same time, I don't want to believe in fake hurdles that don't exist, like norms. No such fucking thing as norms anymore, by the way. So some people are so pragmatic that they start internalizing certain roadblocks and certain norms that don't actually have to exist. And they hold those in the same regard as hurdles that do have to exist and that do exist. And on the other side, some people rightly point out, okay, some of these quote-unquote hurdles are self-imposed. They don't even exist. But then they take that to the extreme of, okay, all these hurdles don't exist. None of them are real. And man, I would just like someone who really genuinely gives a fuck and actually cares. Even if I don't fully agree with their ideology, like Mamdani, right? One thing I know about Mamdani, he has a definition of what making the world a better place looks like, and he really wants to see that be realized. Any centimeter he can move in the direction of his ideal world, he will take it. That's where the pragmatic side comes in. Mamdani will hold hands with Kathy Hochul, establishment, corporate shill, evil Democrat. No. He will hold hands with Kathy Hochul if it allows him to pursue universal childcare, for example. Mamdani, to me, is someone that should be exemplified and made an example of in a positive way, because he has threaded that needle in a way that very, very few American politicians have. Which is why a lot of even like center-left Dems give him credit, right? He was on Derek Thompson's podcast. Derek Thompson was one of the co-authors of Abundance. And most progressives and maybe some leftists will say, oh, abundance is just the neoliberal status quo or whatever. Mamdani went on his podcast and said, listen, I think that if you want to have strong social safety nets and strong public goods provided by the government, you have to have efficiency to make them strong, to make them durable, to make them defensible. And he's incorporated, he's created a synthesis of those two things, where I've seen some leftists say, Mamdani fucking sold out, bro. What the fuck? He's not pure enough anymore. No, Mamdani believes all the same stuff he believed, but now he understands there's a way government works. There's a way public opinion works. There are certain hurdles that exist there. Some are real and some are fake. Remove the fake ones, but be mindful of the real ones to ensure that you are as effective as possible in getting those accomplished. So I really want a Mamdani type figure who I know that this person believes in something, and it's Twitter leftists who are saying that, not many real people. It's, again, I said this earlier, a lot of the like annoying people on the left, they seem like a much larger group on the internet than they actually are in real life, and that's because of the algorithms. The algorithms want you to think that literally everyone is fucking crazy and mean, because that's how you engage with social media, which is why, and this is one thing I like that Tallarico says a lot, is like, it's not just like the billionaires that we have to go after. In my opinion, the tech billionaires, the big tech billionaires are fucking cancer. They have created cancer. They are promulgating cancer on society. And we should tax everyone more to increase revenues to fund important programs. But specifically when it comes to like holding people very much accountable, these monopolistic tech companies have fucking destroyed our social fabric. They have made everyone hate each other, and they've made everyone paranoid. They've made everyone think like only I can see the truth and no one else gets it. Everyone else is an NPC and I hate them. Our society has suffered irreparable damage because of these tech billionaires. And bro, there is a company called Dopamine Labs. There are so many companies whose sole purpose is to do neuroscience research to maximize the amount of hours you spend on these apps. These people are learning neuroscience to basically hack your brain to maximize their profits. Even if you are the biggest capitalist in the world, markets stop working when the producer can just control your demand function. When they can create demand and control demand and modify and alter demand, markets don't work anymore. That's not a market anymore. Or when you have dynamic pricing, this idea that for one given good, every individual consumer is going to be charged a different price in accordance with how bad they want it. If anyone here knows economics, that destroys consumer surplus. Consumer surplus is one of the main arguments in favor of markets. Consumer surplus is the idea that you have willingness to pay from the consumer on a line, and then you have like the price that a producer will accept, right? And when I buy this water bottle, or this isn't a great example, when I buy this Febreze air freshener, okay, I don't know how much this was, $3. To everyone who bought this for $3, who would have been willing to pay more than $3 for it, that's called consumer surplus. The fact that they get this for a lower price than they would have been willing to pay in the worst case scenario. The fact that they want to have dynamic pricing destroys that concept. It is predatory as fuck. And if you are someone who's concerned about authoritarianism, let's be very specific. Why is authoritarianism bad? Because it concentrates power in a way that hurts people and removes the self-correcting mechanisms that should exist in society. The way things should exist is if someone gains power and they use that power to hurt other people, that power should be stripped away from them. Or even if they're incompetent in how they use that power, they should be accountable to, like, the shareholders in a sense, right? We as American citizens are, in a sense, the shareholders of the country. Politicians have to deliver us a return. They have to make America change in a way that is good for us. And my issue is not just with government authoritarianism, it is with private authoritarianism. These same big tech companies, which some people thought like, oh, these are bastions of liberalism, are the same ones who are bringing 24-karat gold-plated trophies to Donald Trump to kiss up to him. That's the issue. And this is why we need a lot of trust busting. Break up these big companies. Concentration of market power is bad for markets. It's bad for markets. Monopolies and all these things, the only situation where a monopoly can be acceptable is if it's publicly owned, right? Because then all of that market power is accountable to the people. A private monopoly, who are they accountable to? Or even a duopoly or an oligopoly. Like a lot of tech companies are oligopolies. And small businesses can come in and compete. I debated Hayden on this for health insurance. I was like, dude, health insurance companies have so much power in what they can charge you. And he's like, well, listen, if health insurance companies are doing a bad job, then you can just start a small insurance business and compete with them to lower prices. How the fuck do you start a small insurance business? How do you even do that? Certain markets, there's something called, I believe, a first mover advantage, which is like the first few people to enter this market, they own that shit now because they were the first ones in there, right? There are barriers to entry, which means if you want to enter a market, you have to have already accumulated some amount of capital. And this is why I hate people that are willing to die at the altar of capitalism. Capitalism, and to be fair to someone who I hate, Tucker Carlson, he once said to Ben Shapiro, capitalism is not a fucking religion. You don't worship capitalism. To the extent that we have markets and capitalism, those things should exist to serve society, not the other way around. The economy should exist to serve society. Society should not exist to serve this abstraction of like a good economy on paper, which no one actually feels in the real world. That's the issue here. And this gets into why I hate Gavin Newsom. Going back to my dichotomy between conviction and pragmatism. The reason I hate Gavin Newsom is that he's a very good opportunist. Here's what I mean. Anyone with a brain right now can look at the American center, left, and left. These three groups, whatever, right? They can look at them and they can say, if there's one thing that binds them together that really gets them out of bed in the morning, it's that they fucking hate what's going on right now. They hate Trump. They hate how he's governing. They hate this fascist authoritarian takeover. Newsom sees that and he's like, oh, so the winning aesthetic is be mean to Trump. And I said aesthetic for a reason. And for me, this was a final nail in the coffin when Ben Shapiro goes on Newsom's podcast and says, Governor, your press account tweeted that ICE is domestic terrorists. And Newsom's like, yeah, that might have been too far. You fucker, okay? That tells me everything I need to know. You will call them domestic terrorists. You will call Trump a fascist only to the extent that it makes people on the left like you. But when someone on the right, when someone working with the fascists comes up to you and says, hey man, will you say it with your chest? Will you say it to my face? No, my bad, sorry. Fuck you. Fuck you. I can't trust you to fight against fascism if your fight against fascism is optics only, is only optics. And to be clear, does that mean, to just harken back, I guess, to the video I posted yesterday, that if there's a general election between Gavin Newsom and JD Vance, that I'm going to vote for fucking JD Vance or sit out? No. So let's just bear that in mind at the same time. Am I going to vote for the guy who wants to like hurt millions of people and lock them up and probably unalive some of them? JD Vance is a scary guy. So this is another example here of why I hate this dichotomy of like either you have to love Gavin Newsom or you have to say, I wouldn't vote for him in a general election. How about I hate Gavin Newsom? And I don't think he'll win the nomination, first of all. I don't think he will. And I will use my platform to the fullest extent possible to fight against him in the primary. But then, when we get to the general election, I'm not going to pretend like there is any equivalence between an actual fascist and an inadequate Democrat. Not even in the same universe. Not even in the same universe. And I wish we could keep both those things in our head. Which is that a lot of these people are inadequate. But inadequate is better than fucking evil. That's my point, but yeah.
Extreme levels of income inequality lead to social instability and drives, in a sense, in authoritarianism, right-wing populism, and very dangerous domestic internal politics.
And Jonathan, I actually disagree. I think you're giving Newsom too much credit. Newsom is not a talking head for neoliberalism. Newsom is a talking head for Gavin Newsom's political career. This is, I think, who the word career politician was created for. Which is, hey, you can pass good policy here and there, and like, sure, would I prefer Gavin Newsom to any fucking Republican? Yes, he'll probably sign legislation to expand the ACA, all that shit. Yeah, true, fine, good, whatever. But this is someone whose primary conviction and motivation is, I want to be the big dog. I want to be the guy. I want to be the president. I want to get views on TV and stuff. A lot of politicians are extremely fucking vague. Trump took that to like the next fucking level, which is crazy. But I do not want someone running for office whose bottom line is, I want to be popular. I want someone who runs, who says, I have a vision for what I want the country to be. And I will use every single lever of power at my disposal to move us closer to that vision. Even if it's half a millimeter, I will do it. I'll crawl there if I have to, right? There's a certain hunger that you really need to have if you want to be an effective leader. Like vision and conviction are so fucking important.
And that is a direct outcome of not just income inequality, but the failure of democracies over decades to deliver. The failure to deliver higher wages, the failure to rein in corporations. The point was just made about antitrust. In the United States, antitrust is such a foundational bedrock value, not just because the ascent of monopolies create the abuse of power in corporations and market power, but there is a level of market concentration and corporate consolidation where...
AKI, Aki, I don't know how to say your name. I agree with you wholeheartedly in the primary. Yeah, I'm not supporting any of those people. I hope this is not what you're saying for the general election, though, because I hope we don't lose the forest for the trees when we get to the general election. Although I am optimistic in that I don't think one of these fake, doublespeak, optics-pilled people is going to win the primary. I do not think they will win. I do not think they will win.
a massive company can get so big.
Anything to get rid of JD. Based. Yes, true.
Power can rival that of nation states. In democracies, we have elected leaders. And in
by the way, for example, I promise you, who's that guy who's running for Pelosi's congressional seat? Shoykot something? I don't know how to spell his name. I think it's like, I know his last name is Chakrabarty. Okay, there it is. Yeah. They did this panel. Anyone know what I'm talking about? It was like these three guys. Okay, here it is. Yeah, they had like, this was genius. They had these yes or no cards, right? On one side it's yes, on the other side it's no. And they're like, okay, you have to answer our questions with your card. And they were asked, is Israel committing genocide in Gaza? And this fucker is like flipping it back and forth, like twiddling with his thumbs, picking his nose and shit. Shoykot was like, yes. I guarantee you there will be a moment on the Democratic primary debate stage or stages, because remember in 2020, everyone and their grandma ran. There was like, they couldn't fit everyone on the same stage. So they had two debates for like half of the race. There'll be a moment where they'll be asked, yes or no, did Israel commit genocide in Gaza? They will be asked that. And I promise you, anyone who gives you some mealy-mouthed, well, I think it's bad, but also there are allies, blah, blah, blah. Anyone who does not answer with a simple yes or no, maybe I'm being optimistic, I think they're cooked. I think the base sees that and says, fuck you. At least if you think no, say it with your chest. I actually prefer that. I prefer someone who says no to that question and proudly says, I'm wrong. Because then I can talk to them and say, you're fucking wrong, you're stupid, whatever. Someone who, I don't know what the fuck they think, and they're like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Shut the fuck up. I hate you. Stop. No, we're not doing that. And I think there's going to be a lot of moments like this in the 2028 primary, which is why I think a Newsom, a Buttigieg, who have been asked that question, and they start sweating and shaking and like, I don't know, maybe. Those people are going to crack under the pressure of the Democratic base in the primary. And it is true the DNC still favors Israel, but here's the thing. The public sentiment does matter. Do not let anyone convince you that the public sentiment does not matter. Case in point, I believe it was 27 Senate Democrats who voted against sending weapons to Israel. 27, more than half of the Senate Democrats. Now, many will rightly say, not enough, not far enough. True. Let me pause you though. Could anyone imagine if I told you in 2012, in 2014, that over half of Senate Democrats would vote against sending weapons to Israel? Would you have believed me if I told you that? No. And why have they shifted? Why have those 27 voted in that way? Public sentiment. Not because like their heart grew by 3 sizes like the Grinch. Public sentiment. And if that's the impact public sentiment has just in day-to-day life, you'll see it shine through a lot stronger during the primary. And that will be for the better. They'll absolutely be for the better, by the way. So I'm confident that whoever the nominee is in 2028 is going to have to say with their chest, Israel did genocide, we're sending Trump to jail. I think those are 2 of the prerequisites. But, yeah. Iran is cooked right now. I don't know what's going on with Iran. Whole entire chest, yeah. Not like I guess, maybe. It's not hard, by the way, to say that. When someone can't cleanly say this is genocide, or even fucking at least say ethnic cleansing, say something. When they can't say that, it tells you a lot about their thought process. I'm sick of triangulators, the people that are like, they run this little fucking script in their head of like, what am I supposed to say to not offend this group or that group and keep these people happy and keep these people in the coalition? I hate that. Everyone hates that at this point. There's one thing you can give to Trump. He does not give a fuck who he's going to piss off when he talks. Does he lie? Yeah. Is he fucking evil? Yeah. But these people where you ask them a question and they're thinking about like this focus group tested answer of like, I have to emphasize this and use this one approved word and like appeal to this one. Bro, just say it's a genocide. At least say it's an ethnic cleansing. At least. It's still insufficient. If you cannot bring yourself to say that the Israeli government intentionally unalived innocent Palestinians for the purpose of trying to, in whole or in part, destroy Palestinian people, I cannot take you seriously. I cannot. Scholars agree on this now. The evidence is in front of our eyes. I'm not asking you to answer some like hot button controversial question. Anyone who is not beholden to these weird interest groups can admit this.
Been as limited as it's been, right? We saw that tariff vote last week. You had 6 Republicans. That's not anywhere close to the universe.
No one would say intentionally. If they say genocide, it has to be intentional. I believe. Someone can correct me. Doesn't genocide have to be intentional? I don't think there's like involuntary genocide. So if anyone says this is a genocide, or even if anyone says this is an ethnic cleansing, both ethnic cleansing and genocide, I think, inherently require intent. So for someone to use that word, I think would have to imply intentionality. And yeah, in an anti-Semitic way is genocide. That's crazy. But here's the thing. A lot of them are scared of being given that label. I want someone who says, yes, it's genocide, and if you think that's anti-Semitic, suck my dick. It's obviously not anti-Semitic. In fact, you're anti-Semitic for trying to conflate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. That's on you. You're the anti-Semitic one. Why are you acting like all Jewish people have to support Israel? What's wrong with you? Can we get some W's for Attorney Verity Smith for the $20 on Cash App? W. Thank you. Based.
Republicans that if they wanted to, protect their political flank and guarantee success in their races, would have wanted to vote yes on that to cancel the Canada tariffs.
There'd probably be a lot more.
There are a lot. There are a couple in there who are retiring.
Okay.
There's one in there who's.
I kind of feel like I'm done with the app mode. I kind of want to debate someone. I don't know if that's gonna work though. I don't think there's anyone MAGA in here at this point. Is anyone else live who's getting guest requests and getting debates? By the way, the genocide in Gaza is another example of what I was saying earlier, which is that a lot of the issues in this country that we chalk up to maliciousness, a lot of them are also ignorance. And I'll give you a great example of this. Let me share some facts about what Israel has done in Gaza that even most pro-Palestinian people don't really know. Like the average normie pro-Palestinian person does not know if they're not keeping up with this constantly and delving deep into stuff. And it's stuff like this. It's these little details that when you learn them, you're like, oh, this was not just intentional, it was sadistic. Pleasure was taken in the suffering of Palestinians. This is not just like, oops, civilian deaths, my bad. This was methodical and intentional, meant to what's the word I'm looking for? Instill like suffering and break the will of the Palestinian people. Here's an example. There are these refugee camps with tents, right? Where the Palestinian people like sleep and stuff. In the middle of the night, Israel would send drones to fly over these tents. The drones would play audio on an attached speaker. The audio would play crying babies and women screaming in agony over these camps. The goal was to lure someone out of the tent, Oh my God, is someone hurt? Is that a baby? Is that a woman? They run out of the tent. Can you guess what happens? The drone shoots them in the head. And when you look at the x-rays and the autopsies, what you will see from those bullet wounds is the bullet is vertical. It's like this. Meaning they were shot from the top down. They didn't even see it coming. When all of these pro-Israel shills, like Cam Higbee, were going to these food drop sites and saying, how can there be starvation in Gaza, silly liberals? Look at all these boxes of food. Oh my God. Those boxes of food were right at the border, and they had to be taken to actual distribution sites. They had to be driven. I'm forgetting the name of the passageway. Those boxes had to be driven by a truck to the Palestinian people to be given to them. Now, why didn't they get it? What? I'm sure some Zionists are going to say, oh, it was Hamas. Initially, when the UN food trucks would take this food to the Palestinian people, the food trucks were guarded by the Gazan police. Whatever that group may be, a group called the Gazan police was defending these food trucks. Then, of course, the IDF killed all the Gazan police. So now these UN food trucks have no more defense. They're driving raw through Gaza with all this food in the cargo towards the people. It's not just that. After killing the people that defend the food, Israel started giving weapons and resources to militia groups within Israel. One is called the Popular Forces. This is a militia group in Gaza, funded by Israel, armed by Israel. And these gangs basically would loot the food trucks and steal the food and then go and sell it on the black market for massive cost write-ups. Think about this. Israel killed the people that were guarding the food aid. Then they funded and armed a group that went and stole the food aid. And then they had the audacity to say, why is Hamas stealing the food? We're trying to feed them. What do you mean starvation? And by the way, not a conspiracy, Netanyahu has admitted to arming these groups. Admitted to it. And these groups, like the Popular Forces, were given special privileges. Let me give you an example. Israel was watching everything in Gaza like 24/7. They have drones fucking everywhere. They have cameras everywhere. This is so crazy, okay? If you are seen with a gun of any kind anywhere in Gaza, you're shot on sight. You're cooked. You're done. You're done. You're cooked. Unless you're in the Popular Forces. Unless you're in the Popular Forces. There were people, part of these Israeli-backed gangs in Gaza, that were in quote-unquote safe zones with firearms, with automatic machine guns, where everyone else was told, you're not allowed to have weapons here. Like, this is a safe zone. If you have a weapon here, you will be killed. Everyone else has to follow that rule except the Israeli-backed militias. Right. Makes sense. For sure. For sure. Okay. So, knowing all of this, if someone has the audacity to come up to me and say, oh, listen, man, stuff happens in war. Civilian deaths are hard to avoid in like such a densely populated area. Oh, is it like hard to avoid like stealing people's food? Is it hard to avoid like creating basically a terrorist group to steal food from poor starving people? Is that hard to avoid? Is it hard to avoid like psychological torture tactics? Is that really hard to avoid? The what was it called? The Gaza Health Foundation, this like American-backed contractor that was going in to supplement the role of the UN to give food to people. I think the GHF, right? First of all, they're only going in because the UN distribution has been crippled by Israel. So Israel created the pretext for them to even go in. Then they go in, and you have American contractors and IDF soldiers who have come forward to media and said, okay, we had these food distribution sites. They were not in safe zones. And my live has been restricted for 10 minutes. Fantastic. I don't give a fuck. I'm finishing. The GHF was distributing food outside of safe zones. In many cases, the civilians had to leave safe zones, and trek like a mile, 2 miles, through areas where active bombing campaigns were taking place. They trek through all of this death and destruction. They get to the GHF distribution site. And again, look this up after the live. Fact check me. American contractors and IDF soldiers have come forward to the media and said, we were told by our superiors to shoot and kill people while they were taking food as a form of crowd control. They were given direct orders from their superiors that once the hungry masses get here and they start digging through and trying to grab some food, shoot them. Multiple American contractors, and I believe 2 IDF soldiers, have said this to media on the record. We were told to shoot unarmed, starving, hungry people. It's not a genocide, liberal. It was an accident. This is why I cannot take someone serious if they rely on these boring, overused talking points of like, listen, the civilian deaths are unavoidable. Okay, bro. Is civilian torture unavoidable? Is sadism unavoidable? You have to be sadistic when you do it? Or, what is that shit called? Project Lavender? This I have to read more into. Maybe it's disputed. So take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. But my understanding is they had an AI facial recognition software on the cameras attached to these drones that would analyze people and determine if this is a military-aged man, just someone who happens to be male that is like a teenager or like a young adult. It's just likely enough that they're in Hamas, so kill them. It's just likely enough, you know. If you're that age and you're a guy, you're probably in Hamas. And also, they were making calculations for acceptable civilian death on some insane shit, which, correct me if I'm wrong, from what I remember, and I need to read more about this, they had set up internal like IDF rules that you could take out 300 civilians to eliminate one suspected Hamas. So first of all, could just be a 25-year-old guy who's not in Hamas. Him just being a 25-year-old male makes him, it's likely enough that he's Hamas. And then on top of that, the orders you now have to kill this person is, hey man, just keep the civilian deaths within 300. What kind of civilian to combatant ratio is that? We're number one. And oh my God, also, this defense guy for Netanyahu who went on Piers Morgan in like 2022. And he says, Piers, big success. We just bombed the bunkers that Hamas hides in. We killed so many. And Piers Morgan, not exactly the fucking pro-liberation guy, okay? Piers Morgan asks him, when you guys like blow up these bunkers and stuff, like how do you get like death counts? Like how do you know how many Hamas people you've killed? Piers, we kind of just assume. We kind of just assume that they're there. We just guess. Okay, let's just use Israel's own logic for a second. Maybe I'm stupid, okay? So first they tell us, hey man, we drop up these leaflets. We send text messages. We warn everyone that a strike is coming. We're so good. We warn everyone. Also, we caught Hamas by surprise. Wait, what? What do you mean? It's one or the other, right? Either you're ambushing densely populated areas with no warning to catch Hamas by surprise, or what? You're telling Hamas, hey, we're on the way. Just sit tight so we can kill you? They expect us to believe this? And I feel like most people in the government, especially who have spent any time learning about this, they know everything I'm saying right now and probably more that's not public. So for them to then turn around and say, this is a complicated issue. October 7th and this and blah, blah, blah. Do you know how easy it is for all these people that are so fucking scared of their own shadow that they can't call it a genocide? Do you know how easy it is to just say, I'm about to fucking violate the laws of physics apparently with this statement. October 7th was really tragic and bad. It does not justify genocide. Oh my God, not the consultants are coming. Is that really so hard to say? To all these politicians who are like, I'm scared they're going to say I'm pro October 7th and then I'm anti-Semitic. What the fuck is the correlation between opposing genocide and war crimes and psychological torture and not liking Jewish people? If anything, if you are consistently pushing a narrative that being Jewish and being a war criminal are like synonymous for some reason, you're the fucking anti-Semite. Why are you boxing Jewish people into this corner? It's stupid. It's annoying. It's so annoying. So that is a big litmus test for me in the primary, and I think for a lot of the Democratic base. Actually, this is a good place to look up polling on this. What percentage of Democrats think Gaza is a genocide? Yep. And Quinnipiac is solid. Andrew asked, why don't you like Newsom? Go to YouTube and just rewind this video a bit. I talked about why I don't like Newsom. 77% of Democrats surveyed believe that the Israeli government is committing genocide in Gaza. This is fucking crazy. This is crazy. If you go back to 2022, yes, on YouTube, I'm live right now, and this video is running live on YouTube. You can rewind the live on YouTube, and you'll find me talking about Newsom like, I want to say 20 minutes ago, something like that. Anyways, if you did this same poll in 2022, wasn't it like flipped? Wasn't it like 60 or 70% of Democrats sympathized more with Israel than Palestine? Am I wrong? Pre-genocide, the polling of the Democratic base was like super inversed. They were like way more pro-Israel than pro-Palestine. And look, 77% now think it's a genocide according to this. 66% according to this. 72%. So what we know is it's somewhere between 2/3 and 3/4. Something between 2/3 and 3/4 of Democrats think it's a genocide. Good fucking luck winning a primary of those people without calling it a genocide. Good luck. Good luck. Not going to work. I don't think it's going to work. I will say, before we all get optimistic and hope-pilled, wow, my live was restricted again. Oh, I just got 2 live flags back to back after the one that I just got. Only for talking about Israeli war crimes. Wow. I've only ever gotten my live flagged when talking about Trump's authoritarianism and Israel's war crimes. What a world we live in. Awesome. Yeah, okay. Your live is cooked? Yeah, it is. We concurrently had around 250 to 320 viewers on here. And that fell off a cliff when I started criticizing the powers that be. Interesting how that works. Hold on. I do kind of want to go get some poke. Maybe I should just leave. Hold on. Thoughts on Destiny lately? I have said this before. I said it in my recent video. Number one, whenever we talk about like progressives versus moderates in the Democratic Party, I am so sick and tired of every discussion about Democrats becoming some kind of proxy war for Hassan Piker versus Destiny, Hassan Piker versus Ethan Klein. Why does every political discussion have to be a proxy war for like Twitch streamer drama? I do not give a fuck. I do not care what they said about each other. As far as Destiny is concerned, I've said multiple times, I probably agree with Destiny on a lot of domestic policy. I love when he debates Trump supporters because he cooks them. With that being said, he is dead wrong on the fact that he thinks Israel's not committing a genocide. That to me was a big turnoff when he said that. On top of that, the way he reacted to the assassination attempt on Trump turned me off as well. And then lastly, the allegations against him, to me, seemed pretty credible, pretty legitimate. Now, it is true that I believe his civil case is still ongoing. So I'm not going to come out here and say he's guilty for sure. I will say I've seen enough credible accusations against him to think he is probably not a great guy. So that's my take on him. I have had 2 or 3 opportunities to work with Destiny before, and I have politely turned those opportunities down. Now, when he is shitting on Trump, do I like that part? Yes, I love it. He's one of the best when it comes to that. I do not support him overall, though, because, again, wrong on Gaza and those accusations, to me, those are kind of red lines where I'm not going to be like championing his name or anything. You know what I mean? So that's where I stand on him. And yes, Peter, so fucking true. So true. People don't hold their own views. They adopt their favorite streamers or like political commentators. Yes. If you do politics on TikTok long enough, here's what you realize, okay? Everyone is just trying to emulate their favorite fucking YouTuber, ultimately. They're trying to emulate either Hassan Piker or Destiny or fucking Steven Crowder or Andrew Wilson or Nick Fuentes or Kyle Kalinske or whoever it may be, right? They have their guy and that's it. They just want to be like their guy. Like, the takes that I give you, I would like to think are genuinely very heterodox. Like, I feel like I have unique beliefs that are like not carbon copy, like packaged, you know what I mean? They're not like standardized. I have heterodox beliefs. I criticize everyone. I don't pull punches on anyone. Right? I wish more people were willing to do that. And by the way, in so doing that, you don't have to shit on everyone else. You don't see me coming on here and saying, let me tell you, this is why I hate Hassan and this is why I hate Destiny. I only speak of them if I'm asked about them. Otherwise, I genuinely do not give a fuck because there are fascists in the White House right now. And when there are fascists in the White House and you're like, oh my God, did you see what Destiny just said to Hassan? Ethan Klein, he posted about it on his story. Oh my God, Hassan just dropped the response video. Shut the fuck up. I do not care. I do not care. And listen, if the subject of their beef is politics, like, oh, who's going to be the nominee, then why can't we just discuss the substantive part? Why does everything have to be this proxy war, this like spiritual warfare between the fucking Jedis and the Sith of Twitch? Why? Everyone is so parasocial and everyone wants to be told what to believe. I say this to my own audience. Do not take what I say for granted. Do not trust claims that I make assertively. Fact check me. I am a 24-year-old person with an economics degree. I am not a journalist. I am not a foreign policy expert. I'm not a PhD. I do my best. I try to be honest. I'm also wrong a lot as well. I'm so disheartened by the fact that everyone, or most people on social media it's not that they don't care about policy, but they don't want to do the work themselves. They want to take someone else's prepackaged beliefs and just say, this is me now. It's like a religion almost. And listen, to Andrew, I probably agree substantively. If Destiny has criticized Hassan for voting third party, I probably agree substantively, but here's the thing. I can make the argument against voting third party in a general election without having to invoke Destiny or Hassan or even channel any of the like beef or the toxicity of like, this is why I'm sick of the leftists. I don't have to do that. And by the way, that's why when I posted my video yesterday, let's just play my video so I can speak on it real quick. Because I very purposefully worded this in a specific way, which I'll explain why in a second. I want to share my opinion on this as someone who... I want to share my opinion on this as someone who really dislikes Gavin Newsom and will fight tooth and nail to make sure he's not the nominee, but would also support him in a general election. My point here is not to antagonize or shame anyone. It feels like a lot of the discourse right now is so focused on personal grievances and like political commentator proxy wars that we've lost sight of the fact that there's some really serious stuff at stake. So this is just my earnest 2 cents. You can take it or leave it. First of all, it's a little presumptuous to even assume we'll have free and fair elections in 2028. So this whole topic feels a bit optimistic right now, but if we do, and if this is the matchup, I'm sorry, but it should be a no-brainer. You don't have to pledge a blood oath to Newsom or anyone to just acknowledge that every single national Democrat, at least that I can think of, is better than J.D. Vance. And by the way, I have this exact same energy for any moderate who says they couldn't support AOC because she's too radical. The other guy is a fascist who, unlike Trump, is intelligent and motivated by a very dark ideology. But my argument here isn't just that Democrats won't lock people up for expressing their opinion and won't try to steal elections and won't defy basic checks and balances. I don't know of any big contender for 2028 who doesn't want to in some way expand our infrastructure or healthcare access or education or environmental protections. A vast majority of Democrats consistently vote to end gerrymandering and get money out of politics. Like little known fact, 54 voted to advance a constitutional amendment overturning Citizens United in the Senate. And yes, there are those in the party who don't fight very hard and seem pretty apathetic towards any big change. Sometimes they're too weak to even mount a defense, let alone fight back.
Your press office tweeted out that it was state-sponsored terrorism, which, I mean, Governor, I just have to ask you about that. That sort of thing makes our politics worse. I mean, it does. I mean, our ICE officers obviously are not terrorists. A tragic situation is not state-sponsored terrorism.
I think that's fair.
But I seriously doubt someone like that can win the Democratic primary. And even if they did, there are ways to exert progressive influence on these people. Just look at what Mamdani is doing with Kathy Hochul right now. I don't know if Hochul would have agreed to work with him on moving towards universal childcare if he had just called her an establishment corporate shill on Twitter instead of building a strategic relationship. I know some think he's like sold out his values because he tries to work pragmatically, but it actually seems to be working, at least better than the alternative would have. And ultimately, that's what matters, right? Results? Having values shouldn't mean you sacrifice being pragmatic. And being pragmatic shouldn't mean you sacrifice your values. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The people in charge right now do not care if you're a leftist or progressive or liberal or moderate. They're coming for anyone and everyone that stands in their way. I'm not gonna tell anyone who to vote for. All I can say is if you want things to be better, then
fight like hell
in the primary, and then
peacefully and patriotically
vote blue in the general. Or
you're not going to have a country anymore.
And Joseph, I do see you in the guest box. I'm not taking up guests right about now. I'm about to end the live pretty soon. But this video that I just played for you was inspired by the discourse happening online. And a lot of the discourse happening online is specifically about what Hassan Piker said on that one show, where he's like, oh, I'd vote third party. I very intentionally did not say the words Hassan Piker or Jennifer Welch or Destiny, because I realized, yes, I could make a video here saying, I hate Hassan. I'm so sick of this mindset. All these Hassan Glazers think it's not important. I could do that. What the fuck does that accomplish? Because everyone who's already on that train is like, yeah, get him. And then the Hassan people are like, fuck you. They're not even going to listen to me if I talk like that. What I did here is say, okay, I do not want to attack anyone. I'm not calling anyone evil. This is why I think that Newsom sucks, but obviously in a general election, vote for Newsom if he's the nominee, which I don't think he will be. So back to Andrew's point about criticizing Hassan for making that argument, I'm not interested in criticizing Hassan. I believe a certain thing, and I want other people to believe it. True? Yes. If I want other people to believe what I believe, the worst thing I can do is open the conversation by saying, you're stupid, I hate you, same bullshit as always, you stupid leftist, or whatever it may be, right? That accomplishes nothing. And if I have had moments on this live where a Trump supporter has joined and they've been respectful and I've said, you know what, let me try to be nice, and I've converted people. People have seen it maybe. I don't know if anyone here has seen it, but I have converted MAGA people to leave MAGA. Not by calling them stupid, but by saying, oh, you're not evil, you're just uneducated. So let me try to educate you politely. If I can try to change the mind of a Republican, why would I not try to change the mind of a leftist who probably aligns more with me on values and that they want people to have healthcare and education, all that stuff? If I can try to change the mind of Republicans and persuade them, why would I then be super antagonistic towards people to my left? Ultimately, if I'm debating someone and they're debating in bad faith or they're being unnecessarily aggressive, I will match that energy. I'm not going to be stupid and earnest if someone's trying to be bad faith towards me. But if someone genuinely believes something and they think they're doing the best they can, they think that they're well intentioned, I am not interested in villainizing that person or antagonizing that person or shaming that person. I only want to villainize and antagonize and shame people who know better and then are dishonest or are actively malicious actors. The vast majority of the American people, left, right, and center, who disagree with me do not disagree with me because they're bad people or because they're evil. They probably, like Ben Shapiro, they probably have just never heard certain arguments or they've never seen certain information. So I will always lead with an open hand rather than a closed fist. Reaching out with an open hand rather than a closed fist does not mean that you do not defend yourself. It does not mean that you don't fight like hell and attack if someone else is a danger. But it does mean you can't get so caught up in being defensive and offensive that you miss the vast majority of people who are not interested in fighting you, who have the same interest as you. Everyone wants their kids to have good schooling. Everyone wants to drive to work on smooth paved roads so they're not getting random bills for fixing their rim because they hit a pothole. Everyone wants a prosperous society where wages are going up and families are strong and people can make decisions about how they want to live their life without being held back by an authoritarian government or an economic system that does not let them advance, or by hateful people around them, or by social norms that stigmatize unharmful behavior. Everyone wants that. But it's so easy to get stuck in your silo, and this is why the hatred that some people have for certain MAGA voters, like certain Hassan Piker fans, I have that hatred for the people that designed the algorithms that created those echo chambers and that created this situation. The people that designed those algorithms that created this in our society, that's who I hate, not the victims of it. I see a lot of people right now who are like believe the wrong thing as victims of a society that is just not set up to teach you stuff. Our education is underfunded. People lie for a living. They sell you lies. Like, how many Trump supporters are otherwise good people who just live in a red city and a red state and their whole family is red, and every piece of information they've ever been fed since like high school was, here's why Democrats are evil and Trump's awesome. And does that mean that everyone's mind can be changed? No. It's probably still a minority of people who can be persuaded. But I think the persuadable population, I don't think Fishback's going to win anything. The population of people in this country who are persuadable and who are winnable is way, way, way bigger than most people acknowledge. It is way bigger. And I just, people are so quick to be like, okay, you're in the out group now. You're on the other team. Maybe I'm wrong here. I would like my team to be as big as possible. I'm not particularly interested in saying, you're on the other team. I'd like people to join my team, actually. I'd like the other team to be 0 people. Okay. That's enough yap. I think you guys get the point. Any last minute questions, comments, or concerns before I go get my poke bowl? Peak yap. I'm glad to hear it. Excuse me. What do you get in your bowl? Finally, a good fucking question. Oh my God. Rice, obviously. Spicy tuna. Spicy salmon. Spicy mayo. Wasabi soy sauce. Cucumbers. Jalapenos. Carrots. And green onions. And spicy crab salad. And avocado. Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong, but I do think you and Destiny would have good discourse. Not that I'm a super fan. That's very possible. I used to like Destiny a lot more back before his takes on Gaza and like before the allegations. And yeah, like I said, I'm sure I agree with him on like a lot of domestic policy, and I'm sure we're in full agreement about like Trump being a fascist authoritarian, right? So, but even with Destiny, I feel like he's so unnecessarily combative sometimes as well. And like I said, I've had a few opportunities to work with him, and in my mind, that they have not been something that I want to do. Like, one was a 2v2 debate I could have joined him on, and then the other was like the Unf America tour stuff that he's doing now. And listen, to the extent that Unfuck America is doing good work, I love that. More power to him. Let's win these elections, right? But in terms of how I want to use my platform and who I want to associate with, to me, it just didn't feel right after the allegations and everything. And listen, I was offered to do a debate with Destiny, like a 2v2 on Jake, I'm blanking on his last name, Jake something's channel, to partner with Destiny in a debate. That would be a huge boost for me in terms of just like getting eyes on me. So I try to put aside the self-interest and be principled in that regard and say, I'm not actually sure I want to do this. But what I will say, not Jake Rattlesnake, different Jake. What I will say is, Destiny fans, come here, join me, because I think a lot of people that watch Destiny would probably like my content, like his viewers. So I have tried doing outreach to his viewers. I think I posted in his subreddit a couple times to try to bring in his viewers and say, hey guys, less problematic person who also thinks it's a genocide in Gaza. Like you don't have to accept these flaws that Destiny has. Come to me. I'm joking. Been watching you before I watched him. Obviously. Who hasn't? Found you through Dean and Parker. No idea who these drama people are, lol. You're lucky to not know who they are. And I love Dean and Parker as well. They're great. I'm sure I don't agree with them on everything, but his subreddit is way better than him. Generally speaking, people's audiences are better than them. Generally. There are some examples where it's not true. You know why? Even with Trump, hear me out for a second. A lot of the Trump audience is not as bad as Trump because a lot of them are true believers. A lot of them believe it. They drink the Kool-Aid. They think it's true. So at least, even a lot of these toxic political commentators, their viewership base is at least in some part earnest. Whether that's 20% or 60%, I don't know. The creators, though, the shitty creators, a lot of the time, they know they're lying. They know their audience captured. They know they're feeding you bullshit. They know they're ignoring certain things, right? So I'm sure that Hassan's audience is better than Hassan, and Destiny's audience is better than Destiny, and so on and so forth. Because in those audiences, there are going to be people that are just doing their best and think this guy knows what he's talking about and everything and all that stuff, right? And Andrew Wilson's an example. He's really cultivated something special. I don't know about Andrew Wilson. Actually, no, though, but even with Andrew Wilson, he's bad faith. I think his supporters are just stupid. And I will take stupid over bad faith any day of the week. I will take it any day of the week. Because people who don't know any better can be taught to know better. People who know better and are fucking evil, you don't deal with those people. Tree something. I'm about to end the live. I'm not taking guest requests right now. I'm also not particularly interested in discussing Destiny lore or attacking anyone. Yeah, like even in general, you guys don't see me throwing shots at other creators, even if I really disagree with them or think they're wrong, because I would rather persuade the viewers of those creators that I'm right. If I instantly otherize them, they're never coming over to my side, ever, 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 ever. So, listen, if you're a Destiny fan or a Hassan fan or an Andrew Wilson fan, and you're like, you know what? Maybe this guy knows what he's talking about. Welcome. Welcome. Way more interesting lore to discuss, like the authoritarian fascist takeover of our country. True. Okay, let me order my poke. Oh, I'm so excited. I drive, by the way, 35 minutes each way for poke because the poke I like is kind of far from here. There's poke that's closer to me, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but no. If I'm getting poke, if I'm taking out a fucking mortgage to buy my dinner, I'm getting a good one. It's just this one location is so much better than the others. And I always get 2 poke bowls and I fucking stuff them. So if I'm spending like 32 bucks on food, I'm going to drive to get it. I'm in Michigan. We have okay poke, but some is better than others. I know like California and stuff. When I was in California, they have good poke on fucking every street corner. And I've heard Hawaii is like unreal. I want to go to Hawaii for the poke. Someone on Twitter says Destiny has a long rap sheet of allegations and incidents. He is just not someone you want representing mainstream politics. Yeah, also true. Even there, I try to be very sober, where I've said the allegations I've seen against Destiny, to me, seem to be at least somewhat credible, because I think he lost friends over that. And if people who knew him believed the allegations, that lends a lot of credibility in my eyes to the allegations. With that being said, I think he's in court right now, and I'm not going to say for sure he's going to lose the court case. So in that regard, I'm going to hold my tongue till the case is over. So I try to be fair. Hold on. Washington's birthday might affect these hours. I'd hope the fuck not. What poke place is shutting down for George Washington's birthday? I don't even know this what President's Day was for. Is that what that is? It's George Washington's birthday? I thought it was just a day for like presidents and stuff. Oops. Okay, let's see. Create your own. White rice bowl. Spicy tuna. Let's go. Cucumber. Jalapeno. Wasabi aioli. Spicy mayo. Soy sauce. Avocado. Crab salad. Oh my god. Yeah, fuck this live. I'm out of here. Green onion. Spicy tuna every time, true. The thing is, good spicy salmon is better than good spicy tuna, but it's easier to find good spicy tuna than just to find good spicy salmon. But like if we're comparing peaks, I think salmon sushi is better than tuna sushi, but broadly speaking, on average, tuna's going to be better. Okay. Okay. Whoa. Did they lower the prices? They heard I was coming and they lowered the... Never mind. Or did they? No, it's the same price. That actually works. You don't have to wait for your food. Wrongest shit you've said all night. Tuna's world's better than salmon always? I don't know. Listen, I love tuna. But if you've ever had a really, really, really good salmon roll, the fattiness and the richness of the salmon, I feel like it's a more layered experience flavor-wise and texture-wise. But again, it's harder to do good raw salmon than it is to do good raw tuna. And ultimately, why pick when you can mix them up? They're great together. Oh my God. And don't you love when they have Apple Pay built into the ordering website? So you don't have to fucking find your card and type it in. Okay. Water versus butter. Yeah, tuna is way lighter than salmon for sure. Okay. That's it for today's live. Everyone stay safe, stay peaceful, stay patriotic, and remember to fight like hell. We're not going to have a country anymore, okay?